G'day, guys. Welcome back to the Supercoach Swordplay podcast. It's our first preseason episode for 2025. The boys are back. Well, 3/4 of us anyway. In saying that, very, very exciting because we would like to officially welcome the fourth member of the Swordplay family, Roscoe. Welcome, brother. Great to have you on board, legend.
Yeah, cheers. Keen to make a big start to 2025, and what better way to jump on the preseason edition of the Swordplay podcast. So good to be on and very much looking forward to getting amongst it this year.
Fantastic, mate. We know that you've been mates with Janath for a very, very long time now. And speaking of my brother, Janath, how are you, mate? You've had a very, very busy off-season, not just with Supercoach putting this guide together, but all of your other stuff. Got engaged. Congratulations, mate. The whole community is extremely happy for you. You're kicking goals when it comes to your studies and your work. So tell us all about how you been, brother. Great to have you on again, my man.
Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. It's brilliant to be back on. What is it? Looking forward to a big season ahead. I think this is fair to say it's going to be a bigger season yet. It got engaged, which was truly amazing. And then also started medical school. So that was sort of what was in the pipeline last year, just a podcast on the side. But some people may not have realized that at the point in time. But yeah, so 5 weeks in already. So it's going by pretty quickly. So bit of a long journey. So we'll see how we go. But all good, mate. How are you? You doing well?
Very good, very good. I'm a little bit stressed when it comes to my Supercoach side at the moment. I thought that I was set before the community series, and all of a sudden it is absolutely blown up. So what we're going to do in this episode, boys, is we are going to review all of the games so far, all the community series games. At time of recording, what is it, Jana? Think about the third quarter in the D's Freo game. So we haven't actually had the chance to watch that game, but towards the end of the poddy, we will take a look at the scores and have a look at some of the data there anyway. But it's going to be a massive season and a massive podcast to kick us off, boys. So before we get into the meat of it, just some quick housekeeping. Again, thank you to anyone that has purchased a beanie or any of other our merch from the supercoachswordplay.com website. Remember, for every beanie sold, we do donate $5 to the Royal Children's Good Friday Hospital Appeal, and we're currently at $275, boys. So we have a fresh batch of beanies ready to be delivered. So we'll continue to do that this season and support a really, really good cause. So thank you, everyone, that has done that so far. But this has been the big project, boys. I think most people have heard about this by now, really exceeding our expectations. It is the Supercoach Swordplay 2025 season guide, and the feedback so far has been absolutely amazing. It's 100% digital. You can order your copy today, go straight to your mailbox. If you are ever having any troubles accessing it for any reason, just let one of us know, and we're there to help where we can. But Janath, quickly, what can you say about this guide, mate? We're so proud of it, but you've been a real driving force behind it this year.
Oh, thank you, mate. Greatly appreciate that. It's really has exceeded all of our wildest dreams in that way. We've sold close to 250 copies now, which is just mind-blowing to think about. The amount of the good feedback, like you were saying, that we've got on the guide has been immense. And now with the final preseason sort of game finishing up, we can sort of bring the season guide to a close. We've got almost 70 pages of preseason notes in there. So if you want all of your preseason notes in one place, this is the place to go. Look, in the coming couple of days as well, we're going to be looking to revamp the projected teams for round one. Obviously, when the book was first released, some of these players weren't injured that we'll talk about coming up very soon. But the amount of good oil that's in here for each team and also the articles. And one of the things I think what we're going to do as the season goes on is this isn't just a preseason guide. This is a season guide. So you can use it during the season because the tips for captaincy, the tips for buying high, selling high and buying low. All of those things are going to be very, very relevant as the year goes on. So if you haven't got yours yet, it's never too late to get onto it. And here are just some of the discount codes you can use to support some of our content creators who are involved in making this magazine as well. So thank you to all of these guys as well.
Very well said. And this is a community project. I know that we've done a lot of the work, but it wouldn't have been possible without all of the legends that you see on the banner on the outside of this slide. So thank you very much, guys. And be sure to use a discount code from one of your favorite creators. It helps them out. And obviously, you get that at a discount as well. It is going to be your 2025 Supercoach Bible. All right, boys. Now, we do have some leagues we're quickly going to go through here. Firstly, we do have the Supercoach Swordplay Open League, unlimited participants. So it will be a bit of a prize pack here. Code 503052 if you're keen for that one. I'm also running the 2025 Prison League. So I think I've got about 50 people that are involved in that at the moment. So $10 entry. I'll put a video out about it. So if you are interested, email me at supercoachwithDR@outlook.com. Really, really fun concept there and cash prizes to be won. Also running the $50 Open Charity League. We're trying to support Headspace here. Of course, it's become really, really close to my heart. So all the details, again, I'll put out a separate video, but you can see it here. There'll be a $20 donation to Headspace. The winner will get 50% of the prize pool, runner-up 20%, third 10%, and then we've got a beanie and a notebook for fourth and fifth. So the more the merrier. Again, email me at supercoachwithdr@outlook.com. All right, boys, housekeeping done. And I think I stuck to close to 10 minutes here, Janath. So for the first time, we're starting off well this season.
We are improving.
We are on time, mate. I'm
Let's
trying
go.
my best.
Come on.
So let's talk about this upcoming season. The carnage that we've experienced so far, and it feels like we do say this every year, but it just gets worse and worse. Have we ever seen anything like this? Our M1 and M2, and sneak peek for the season guide when we do our rankings, I think that Marcus Bontempelli and Zach Butters featured very heavily in our M1 and M2 discussion.
Yeah.
But no longer, boys. They are Gonski, as is another star midfielder in Errol Goulden. We know that Trelaw's out for a while. Hayden Young, see you later. Tom Green, no longer about. And then even Callum Mills, such a popular selection that was just a lock and load for so many people in the preseason. All of a sudden, these are no longer relevant options for our starting sides. And who knows if Ned Richards is going to get up. A couple of other players that are touch and go. Brody Grundy is another one. Please don't select the peanut Ladhams.
That's you missed my boy.
Oh, Nicky Newman.
Looks like Jagger.
Nicky Newman.
Jagger.
Oh,
Jagger.
Mate, Janet, this is the trouble, mate. There's only a certain amount of space I've got on this slide. Cheap is like,
keep going.
We've also got Roel Marshall, Jack Sinclair, Max King, Cooper Sharman, Mitch Owens, Mateus Filippo. We could go on.
Jeez, well,
Mitch Owens.
Didn't want to spend 25 minutes putting this slide together. Sorry, boys, but geez, I think we've got we can tell by now from that 1 minute discussion that we're in some big trouble. But with trouble, it opens up opportunities. So as we go through these games, we're going to talk about who could replace these popular premiums with. There's obviously some teams that have a bye to start off and are not involved in opening round. We've got 8 opening round sides, which we'll look at as well. But boys, this is going to be a huge one. So what do you reckon? Start to dissect some of these community series games?
Let's get into it.
Before we begin, though, I'm just going to do a very quick pre-test. Who have you boys replaced the Bont with? Let's see if this changes as the potty goes on.
All right.
1, Lachlan Neal.
Yes.
Chucky.
Same boat.
Is that the same thing?
Same boat.
I've gone different. I've gone down to Jordan Dawson. So
awesome.
Bit of
Jay Dawes. Jay Dawes. We'll see if that changes. But yes, now let's officially crack into these practice matches. So the Amy Community Series, I guess, just before we start off, I just want to sort of outline a couple of things that we can fall into a little bit of a trap with. So when we consider these Amy Community Series games, they're often very suited to those uncontested possession players, the wingers, the halfbacks that get the chip ball. Many of the games across this weekend haven't been very close, except for the West Coast North Melbourne game, which when we discuss it, you'll probably see that the midfielders and the rucks have performed a lot better than in some of the other games that you see throughout the week. You can also see that a lot more really that tight 23 core. You probably have your 26th, 27th best players getting a run through in here as well, and some of the time on ground numbers may look a bit skewed. So just take all of those factors into consideration. When we look at Geelong and the Bombers, I think it really showed from the get-go that the Bombers have definitely gone into more for transition, quicker ball movement style. And you can see that really benefits some of the players like Nick Martin, Zach Merritt. But also there's some players that are popping their heads out as defensive options. And the ones I'm really talking, there's Jackson Pryor in that 160k range and Zach Reid at 123k. Reid was on kick-ins, and that represented in the score with 73 is quite a good. You would take that any day of the week from a line that we really don't have many good rookie options in. So what I'm going to do, boys, now is I'm going to hand it over to you. I want a player that impressed for you and a player that didn't impress for you from either team. We'll start with you, DR. So from this game, who impressed you and who didn't impress you?
Who impressed me? Well, I'm going to go with one of the two rookies that did. I'll go Nevitt. I'll go Mitch Nevitt. Mitch Nevitt impressed me. Now, we've seen in the past that he's been a real sub-risk, but I think we're seeing a bit of a change at the guard in the Geelong midfield rotation. Who knows if Baz is going to get up for the first game? Hopefully he will, not too sure about that. But I think what we've seen all during the preseason with the intra-clubs, that Nevitt's really had that role. And I think what I liked most about this was his CBA percentage. I think he's going to be one of the bigger faces in there. I think someone like Danger will start to play a little bit more forward time. And I think at the price around the 140 mark, you are saving, 40, 50K on your Harvey Langford types if you're not too keen on those players, on your Sid Drapers, who we'll talk about a little bit later. So I just think this guy is a really easy lock, either on field or either on your midfield bench. So Mitch Nevitt, yeah, really good for me.
Good. I think that's pretty safe in terms of someone that impressed. I think starting at that M8, so you could probably field him given the role there as well, but it would be interesting to see how it looks in round 0 with Bailey Smith back into the side, just to see how that goes. What about a player that you thought going into the game, you sort of had high expectations for, but probably didn't meet those expectations? Not so much to exclude them from your starting team consideration, but maybe drops them back in the pack a little bit.
Yeah, look, it's someone that I was never keen on, but just for people that were, Dylan Shield. I think we saw everything that we needed to see with someone like Dylan Shield. Look, good footballer, but draft as a midfielder, they're trying to find a way, in my opinion, to keep him in the side and keep him relevant. But I just didn't like what I saw. He got enough for it, but a little bit messy for me. So I think if you were someone that was looking for some sort of a strategy to maybe start someone in your midfield and then go back with them once they get their DPP to try to cover that tricky defensive line we've got at the moment, if you're thinking about Dylan Shield, just scrap him off your list because not clean, just didn't like what I saw.
Cool. Let's throw it over to you now, Roscoe. So a player that impressed you first, and then go with the player that you weren't impressed with.
Okay, I think I'm going to start with the player that impressed me, and I can't believe that I'm going to say this and that I've got him in my side, but Elijah Sardis. He put on a very good performance. He had his 31 disposals, clear, defined midfield role, lots of contested possessions, 10 clearances, and I think that role should be fairly Supercoach friendly. You know, he's been touted to have a big preseason, and Essendon seemed to be pretty keen to get game time into him. I mean, last season, he was a bit of a sub-risk and, he missed a couple of games, got dropped. But I think this season, I think they were going to be willing to be patient and give him a lot of time and, really establish him as a key cog in their midfield group. So I think he's probably one that we might all need to be jumping on. I'm not saying he's going to be dropping 90s or above every week, but, you'd be happy with 75 or an 80 average out of him, I think, across the season.
Had led the team in CBAs as well with 73%. And would you, if you had to field a Nevitt or a Sartis without knowing what their round 0 score is, so this is for round 1, who would you put on field?
I think I'd still probably be playing Sartis. I just feel like he's got a bit more of a guaranteed midfield role. I mean, Nevitt did play a fair bit of mid-time, but, I just feel like Sartis is established as probably one of their main three, whereas Nevitt's probably going to roll through maybe a bit more at a 40, 50% kind of click versus Sartis at 70 or, 80 even.
Yeah, awesome. And then a player that didn't impress you, mate?
Look, I think there weren't too many players that were necessarily unimpressive in this game, but I'm going to pick someone that I had my eyes on in my team review last week. It just became clear to me but the role wasn't there. We didn't really see much of him. And I believe he kicked 4 or 5 goals in the VFL game before this game. But Tom Edwards, I was quite hopeful that, getting picked up from Swan Districts, he would just be able to come in and, hopefully cement himself as a real round one bolter at 99K. But 24% and the 3 touches probably indicates to me that they're not too keen on selecting him to start in round one. We get another look next weekend against the Suns, but I can't see that changing considering they had 25 or 26 playing in front of him.
Yeah, awesome. Very concise there. I'll give my take as well on this. So I'm not going to really touch on Jackson Pryor's, Zach Reid as 2 players that sort of impressed, because for most people, they're going to be in and about that sort of D6 to D8 consideration. A player that sort of wasn't on my watch list at all, really, and after the sort of the team pick I hadn't really thought about, was Isaac Kako. 4 goals, could have kicked 5, looked really lively, and he feels like one of those players, and it's a bit different with Nick Watson last year, because I didn't get this sense from him in the preseason that Watson has sort of a Supercoach-friendly game, whereas Kako, he sort of has that knack to be in the right spot at the right time. Like, he already, in his first sort of real hit out, he was already at the drop of the ball, and I know this is, as a Carlton fan, I've been screaming for a play like this. Just someone that knows where the drop of the ball is, high points per possession player. Kako at 145K, like you were saying before, DA, if you're not confident in Harvey Langford, well, yes, the small forward role for Kako may not be great, but just how much worse is his scoring going to be? He may fluctuate, but is there possibility that you could just put him on your bench and that he's guaranteed to get the games? I think that's somewhere where Kako may become a bit of a favourable selection. What do you think?
I agree, and I don't think that he's going to be someone that's a sub-risk as well. I think some of these high-priced rookies I'm actually a little bit more worried about if they may potentially be subbed off. So just looks super exciting, really clean. And what I love about him, he's got that high footy IQ. You can just tell. Big fan of him. Love the hair as well. Love the whole look about him. So he's someone that's been in and out. He's someone that if I need that extra 20K of chopped, and if I get an extra 20K, I bring him back in. So I don't think he's an absolute lock by any stretch, but super relevant and may very well make his way into my side. How about you, Roscoe? You keen on Kako?
Yeah, I have him at the moment. I don't think we'll see him dropping 97s every week. We might get a 97 one week, we might get a 50 the next week, but that's the nature of small forwards. And I think someone who's guaranteed to play, you can probably find a spot for him on your bench at the very minimum. So I think I'll have him to start off the year.
Like
awesome.
It. Can I just say as well, I can't believe I forgot about this person that disappointed me. How about SDK?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really high hopes for him. Oh, sorry, Janath. We'll go
right.
into it, mate.
You go. No. I got another one. You go.
Well, it was just, we wanted to see a really nice role. We wanted to see a big impact from him, and it just wasn't there. It was always going to be a little bit of a gamble with the Geelong merry-go-ruck situation. But I think it's just going to continue this year for us. So if you were half keen on him, not anymore. I don't think we can go there. Sorry, mate. Just can't believe I skipped him.
No, the thing for me I found was that he actually had the role, but he didn't pass the eye test, is how I saw it. It was like he had the ruck split, so maybe it wasn't the 80% ruck split that you really would have wanted. I'm just going to get up the exact number here now. So in terms of ruck contest, he took 50% of the ruck contest, so he took exactly half. In terms of CBAs, though, he took 79% of the CBAs. So around the ground, he probably wasn't as involved as he was at the CBAs, but he just didn't look good. Like, it's just, yes, Essendon is admittedly a harder ruck matchup, but it was just like, it's something where the role can be there, but the eyes can really tell a little bit more. And I wasn't convinced by him at that 300 sort of 60, 70K mark to be able to go there. Ross, would you defend that opinion?
Not really. I think that probably sums it up pretty well. I was hoping to see him, get to an 80 or a 90, and then you could go, yeah, maybe I could pick him with the role being right, but, it just didn't really show it for me. And I think after the first quarter, I probably looked at my team and went, no, I can go better elsewhere. So,
yeah, awesome. I guess the last player I sort of want to touch on is sort of a disappointment. There's Connor O'Sullivan. So was also looking at a player that defensive option, 120k. Like, he started well. Admittedly, like, he was involved, intercept sessions. I think he had 6 of his 8 touches in the first quarter, all handballs. Was looking quite good, but I just think that with how settled the Geelong backline is, I don't think there's really a spot for him. Like, you've got your Stewart, you've got Henry, yes, Colin Jasney, Humphreys, Sam De Conning's that moving piece. Like, this, if Stanley plays, De Conning is going back, Sullivan's going out. And the fact that you have to rely on another player's role to pick an O'Sullivan, and he didn't perform really too well in the preseason game, I think he's just one that you can cross off the watch list in terms of a defensive rookie option.
Agree. And the last one I just want to touch on is Max Holmes. For me, a big part of this is the emergence of some other defenders that share the same buy. So for me, his relevance has gone down simply because of some of the options that we're going to talk about in some of the other reviews.
Yeah. Ross, anyone else you want to touch on, mate, in the Cats?
Not really. I think that sums it up pretty well.
Awesome. Let's move on then. 1 out of 9 done. Richmond versus Collingwood. Let's say that this game isn't necessarily one for the faint-hearted watcher. It was tough watch, admittedly. But look, there is a lot of Supercoach relevance. Especially we were looking at some of the Tigers rookies. And I think this is one of the perfect games I was talking about before. Those uncontested wing players are going to score really well. And apart from your Dacos, Perriman, well, apart from the Collingwood midfield, you don't really see much from the Tigers over there. So how about this? DR, you went first last time. Roscoe, I'm going to give it to you first time here. Player that really impressed you, and then a player that didn't impress you from the Tigers or the Magpies.
I think I'm going to go with Toby Nankervis as my sort of impressive player. He showed, obviously, he's got the number 1 ruck role nailed down, but he showed a good hunger to get around the ground, managed to score 131 with only 68% time on ground. And I think that he would be a player that I would be relatively confident in picking from Richmond, as I think he can actually take a bit of a higher individual share of their team points. You know, if there's no one else that's really standing out to score high, the next highest was Short with 107. And he's on, 120 at full time. I could see him getting a handy boost off that. So I think he'll be the one for me. There's a couple on the Pies that were a little bit obvious, but I'll leave them for you. And I think one that didn't really impress me was Ed Allen. He just didn't get the time on ground. A lot of people have been spruiking him up to have a big preseason, but 191K, you can't pick him only playing 30% time on ground. So that would be my 2. What about you, Janath?
Yeah, look, very quickly on Ed Allen, 30 Supercoach, 61 fantasy and 34% time on ground pretty much sums up why we wanted him as a selection. Because it's like in 34% time on ground, he had 11 touches, 4 marks and 5 tackles. Like, that's a good rookie game in a full game. But I don't think he's going to get that opportunity, unfortunately, unless we see an injury or we see something happen in round 0 which says otherwise. And on Nankervis as well, I think it's one of those interesting debates. Really, for me, in that ruck line, it's been between Cherry, Nank, TDK. Which 2 of the 3 I pick? And I think all 3 of them have put their hands up this weekend in sort of justifying that. And now it's just a matter of, do you pay up for Cherry? Do you go for Nank? I think TDK's locked in. DR, do you have anything you want to add on those 2 players?
One extra thing I just noticed about Nank is his drive to get behind the ball. He had a couple of really nice intercept marks. So I just love the way that this man's working. Obviously, captain of the club, lots of young people around him. He wants to set the standard. And as a young player, wouldn't it make you feel so much better when you're lining up in the middle against some of the competition superstars, knowing that your big captain's right there and is going to have your back? So, yeah, really impressed with his work rate and absolutely Supercoach relevant. I think you nailed it. The 3 that I'm seriously considering are the Nank, TDK, and Sherry's a lock for me. So, Nank versus TDK, probably the big decision I've got, but leaning more towards TDK purely because I can really use that extra 50-odd K.
Nah, all good, mate. Look, I'll go into my impressed versus not impressed. I'm gonna give you a layup, DR, with who impressed you. But I'm gonna go Jaden Short as someone that impressed me. As 25 touches, 6 marks, may not sort of scream the lights out or anything. I think this is a pure eye test here. Now, he was always going to perform well in a preseason game when the ball is literally down Collingwood's end the whole time. But one of the things which I saw from Jayden Short that I hadn't seen last year and sort of brings me back good vibes from a couple of years ago is that his willingness to call for the ball, one, but also the fact that he is running off the back of the stoppages to get to be the first receive off the ball from stoppage. So whether that be a centre bounce, it's going up. You always see Jayden Short flying from one end of the screen, going through. And yes, that may not be a fully accountable role, but in Supercoach, you're not really picking Jayden Short to get intercept marks or what so. You're really looking at him for bulk possessions. And I think that this year now with Daniel Rioli gone, and you've really, after that, the second layer of distribution is really your types of Sam Banks, Nick Vlauston to an extent, but there's really no one there that should be commanding the ball over Jayden Short in this instance. Now he's also in the leadership group as well. I think that Short has the opportunity to actually average 100 over the course of the season, and priced at, 82, even if he does average 100 flat, he should be a good enough pick as a stepping stone for us. Anything you boys want to add on the Short pick?
I just want to throw one back at you. Is that what you're viewing him as? A stepping stone? And like best case scenario, your D6?
I would. A couple of years ago when George Hewitt was around this same price, I think he was about 400 or 440k. And at this point in time, you're saying if he can average 100, it's a win. He went on to average 110, and he was a D4 even before he got injured. And if there's a scenario where Short obviously probably won't replicate that, given he's never averaged 100 in his career, but he's also never had the backline distribution all to himself either, because he's always had a Daniel Rioli or a Batcher Hooley there that's taken possession off of him. So I think now that he's got this role, if he can average 105, he's a D6 for sure. If he averages 100, it's a decision you make at his bye if you want to move him off when you have a bit more clarity as to who the top 6 defenders is going to be. And then a player that didn't necessarily impress me, it's slim pickings really, but I'm going to go, let's do it this way. I'm going to go a player, not for Supercoach base. I'm going to go James Tresize didn't impress me. And this has the ramification for Luke Traynor. So James Tresize is playing as sort of in that Richmond back 6. I think he's playing as sort of a pseudo halfback, third tall sort of player. He didn't really give me enough to say that Traynor won't debut early. And when we look at Luke Traynor, 39 Supercoach points in only 40% time on ground, 113k rookie. I think that there's really meat on the bone here. I know that's one of your DRisms in that, but he could debut early, and that's something I think we've got to keep in mind is perhaps Adam Uze may shift away from the Tresize to a Traynor, even if he is not named round 1. So that's where I'll go with my sort of the player that didn't impress.
Don't mind that at all. I was looking into him and thinking to myself, could this be a bloke, because we're really struggling with defensive rookies at the moment, could this be a bloke I just start with who doesn't actually play round 1, but I'm hoping that he can get into the side? Only issue is he plays the first game and you can't actually use him as a loop, which is frustrating. If he wasn't playing the first game, I'd be much more into it, knowing that the next few weeks I'll be able to obviously use one of my buy players as that loop. But very impressive when he was actually on the field. The question is, how much time is he going to get on the field and will he actually be selected? But I know that Abs is a big fan of him, really rates him highly, which always makes you ears prick up, doesn't it, coming from a great Richmond man like that?
Yeah.
Cool. DR now, you're impressed, not impressed. If you don't have a not impressed, you can go with 2 impressed, because I know there's 2 players that need to be talked about.
I will give you a non-impressed, but look, Dacos is too easy. This bloke just took the absolute P155, didn't he? What a scary thought of not owning this bloke. Well, geez, I'm talking Nick, but Josh in his defensive role looked A-OK as well, along with Houston, I think, looked okay. But look, Nick, they call him the king for a reason. This bloke is absolutely elite. Probably still not for me. I'm going Neil because of the DVP, which we'll talk about that in a little while. But yeah, if you've got Nick Dacos, I think you can rest pretty easy. But maybe some tags coming up at the start of the season, which puts me off slightly. But I won't go with Dacos. I'll go with Harry Perryman. I really like this role. I think that his tackle count will give him a really nice floor. 22 touches, half of those basically contested. I think the numbers are there for me. We know that Collingwood are really crying out for someone with that defensive pressure in the midfield. And looking at his CBA count, I think he'll continue to do that, and I think he'll be that man for them. And at the price, I think this is really, really hard to deny. It's awkward when you've got your Roberts, your Zorko, your Holmes with the same buy. But for me, I really, really like that midfield role, like the defensive pressure. So Perryman is someone that I'll probably go with. Is someone that impressed me. And someone that didn't is probably Darcy Cameron. I know that he was on some people's radar as a bit of a pod sort of ruck because you may not be confident on a TDK. You don't want to spend up for a Nank or a Gorn or a Sherry. You need to be looking around the shop, but he just didn't do enough for me. And Nank made him look a little bit second rate. So after watching that performance, I would just rather pay up for someone that I'm a lot more confident, someone like a Nank. So Darcy Cameron didn't do much for me.
Awesome. I think we basically covered off a lot of the players that was sort of had that Supercoach relevancy here. Ross, do you have anyone else you would want to add?
Not really, but I must say I am chomping at the bit to start on the old Bulldogs and Hawthorn because there's a few players there that I just thought, oh boy.
Let's get into it without further ado. We'll start off with the elephant in the room, and that's the Bont. Obviously, the Rolls Royce has gone down. And the classic part about all this is he goes down into the rooms, you're thinking, oh, probably go and change your studs or something. Comes back, he's wearing his training gear, he's probably taking a rest. Calf tightness, he says it's A-OK. And then wouldn't you know it, goes to scans, out for 6 weeks. It's just not what you want to see in preseason when your Brownlow fancies, like your Butters, like your Bont, like your Jagger Smiths. No, I'm not going to go there. Ruled out for prolonged periods of time. But yeah, so this will really open up some opportunities. And I think with that being said, I'll pass it to you, DR, to go first this time. Who really impressed you in this game, and then who probably didn't do enough to really warrant consideration?
Sam Davidson. What a game from Sam Davidson. If you tuned in to the Western Bulldogs team preview that we did very early on the season with Matty Lyons, he told us that this was exactly what's going to happen with Sam Davidson. He said he's locked into a wing. He'll play the first match of the season and he'll play really well. The athletic traits that Davidson possesses, I think, will lend really well to his role and to his job security moving forward. Matty was saying during those match sims at training that 1 minute he'd be down the back line, next minute he'd look up and he's pushed his way up into the forward line, can obviously find the football, his mature age. Now that wing role can be a tough role, can be really friendly during some quarters. The next quarter, it's like you've fallen off the face of the planet. And we did see a bit of a quieter quarter from Davidson during the game. But I think if you look at this as a package, the price, the fact we can select him in our forward line, mature body, played a lot with forward time last year for Werribee, kicked a nice bag of 6, couple of bags of 4, I think. There's just so much to like about this bloke. And I'm becoming more and more confident that he could be someone we could even field at F6. I always had him on the bench, but after watching him in action, geez, he impressed me. And I think that's a realistic option for us now. If we want to go a little bit cheaper in the forward line and he managed to get a couple of decent bench options, he could be the man at F6 for us. So Sam Davidson, extremely impressed. What did you boys think? You're all over him? Absolute lock?
Yep, he's in there.
I think the part that it impresses me and it also is a bit scary at the same time is that at halftime he had 23 touches and he's finished the game with 29 in a full game. And so that's just the positional volatility, playing as that winger that floats up and back and just works tirelessly. But the role is there. We know what the role's going to be. We know that his job security is probably going to be quite good now, especially with the Bont injured. Latham Vanderveer's concussed and, I don't know, maybe touch and go for that first game against North Melbourne. Really, Davidson, if they don't pick him, it's going to be an uproar from the Doggies faithful. So I reckon, yeah, just lock him in and he's probably a safe fieldable option, especially in that first week playing against North Melbourne. You don't need to worry about who you're fielding in the best 18 rounds because you can do loops and all of that. But in the first round, when you have to pick players and you probably don't have a loop, I think Davidson's someone you can trust at F6.
Love it, mate. All right, who didn't impress me? Will Day didn't impress me. He was definitely someone that was on my radar as that mid-price pick alongside your Chera and your Clary. But nah, not for me anymore. Did spend a bit of time forward, which I know this was flagged with Will Day in the preseason. But if you look at the stat line there, 20 touches, only 8 of those kicks. But it's that efficiency as well, isn't it? 60% efficiency. That's just not good enough for me. So I think with all of the other great mid-price options that we've got on our hands at the moment, that Day is just down in the pecking order for me. I know that we were pretty impressed with him in the other practice match before this, but, there was no Bond, there was no Treloar. He wasn't competing against a terrific Dogs midfield, no Ed Richards as well. So I thought, given the fact that the Dogs were really down in that area, that someone like a Will Day would have the opportunity to really step up and dominate here. And he just didn't do that for me. So really talented player. I'm not writing him off completely, but just not too impressive for me. Sorry, Will. Love you though, mate.
Roscoe, mate, is there who impressed you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a cheeky designated kicker for the Dogs, Joel Fraser, the talented second-year player. Hint of caution, no Bailey Dale, so we'd have to obviously watch and see how he goes with Bailey Dale in there. But the performance was quite nice off halfback. He was keen to get involved in transition, moved the ball along. He had plenty of touches, took some uncontested marks as well. So it was a pretty stellar performance from him. I'm not saying it's one that I'm going to be picking straight away, obviously, because there was no Dale. And I do think that there might be some other better value options at the price, but I could completely understand why someone would be willing to maybe jump on and take the risk, assuming that Bailey Dale doesn't get up, because that probably indicates to me that the role is his. Not for me, though, personally, but it was a good showing from him last week. I think the one that didn't impress me, this is kind of a cheeky one. A big shout out to John O'Carroll, one of DR's channel members, flagged for a lot of us the possibility of finding a defensive saviour in Ryan Gardner, 142K defensive rookie. But he didn't do anything at all. He sat on the bench and the dreams faded away as quickly as they developed, really. So that was a bit disappointing not to see him get any time. Even if he came in an average 60 for the year, it would have been nice, but it doesn't look like he's going to be playing very early on for them. So not too good to us at all.
Nah, that's not great. And the thing is, if Gardner did play, could have played as sort of a backup ruckman for Tim English, but not to be in that case. Look, you guys have taken all the good picks, so I've got the bottom of the barrel stuff now. Luke Cleary was a player that sort of impressed me. 89 points, but the thing that impressed me most is his ability. He reminded me of Joel Fraser last year. 18 touches, 7 marks, was playing in that defensive role, looked right at home. My only issue here is that he's probably the one that goes out for Bailey Dale. And so that's an issue. But if you're not going to bank on 89 points every week, but he's priced at 172K priced at 32 points. So you would take an 89 points from that kind of rookie any day of the week. So that's just one that I was put there. A player that did also impress me, I should mention, is James Sicily. Before this, and this is going to be the issue, is he's that good of a player as a swingman that he can move from either end of the ground in on a whim. And so SDS, shout out to the legend there, was saying that Sicily normally goes forward off the ball near the end of quarters when like sort of a goal or there's that sort of thing. But his role as an intercept in the first quarter and the second quarter as well, near the start of the quarter, was there to be seen. I think if Sicily can settle down as defender with Battle and with Barras there, he's going to be a slam dunk pink. I just don't think that we'll get to a point where we can safely say, no, he won't be a forward. And I think that comes with Cal Shadia missing there as well. I'm going to be a bit cheeky as well and say who didn't impress me. And is it bad to say Riley Sanders?
I was going to go him. I was going to go him instead of Will Day, but I took the easier one. Speak, my man, speak, because I agree.
Yeah. It's one of those plays where no Bont, no Treloar, no Ed Richards. Libber's there, yes, but he's getting up in age. the midfield is Riley Sanders. Like, this is your midfield.
Step up, man.
Like,
Step up.
This is your midfield. Step up. 5 kicks, 17 handballs is probably the first red flag for me. Is why isn't he kicking more? So that's basically a 1 to 3 kick to handball ratio. And that's not really conducive to Supercoach scoring. Yes, the tackles are there, 8 tackles. Yes, the contested possessions, 8 contested possessions. But we look at the meters gained, 76 meters gained. You can't command a midfield with 76 meters gained. And we've seen that in the past. We saw that with Rory Laird. When you can't command a midfield and move the ball forward, you won't be part of the midfield mix going forward because you just don't have that impact per possession. And I think that's going to be the thing where, yes, maybe this may have been because he was going up against a strong Hawthorn midfield. But I think for Sanders to be the player that we want him to be at 330k this year, that he has the opportunity. He just didn't show that enough. And now we're sort of going on blind faith that this is his midfield for at least 6 weeks, along with Libba, that he should deliver for us. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you boys that Sanders can deliver for us? And sort of average, let's say 90 to 95 to begin the season until Bont and Trelaw get back.
Yeah, I'll probably go with about a 4, I think.
A 4?
Personally, for me, Hugo Garcia at nearly 100k cheaper is just a better option. They have a similar role, and there was nothing to indicate to me that Garcia's scoring will be any worse or any better than Sanders based on how they both played. I think that's probably the way I'd rather take it.
Yeah.
And so if I was to pose this to you now, boys, would you rather go Bailey Smith, early buy, plus 6 at Bailey Smith with the early buy, or Riley Sanders plus 60k? I think that's going to be a popular 50-50 that a lot of coaches will be toying with over the next couple of weeks.
I personally
haven't got any
don't have either.
Yeah, well, there you go, Roscoe. I'm the same. I don't have either at the moment. I'm going to say Baz just. Look, the real disappointing thing about this, as you mentioned, Janet, it's like, it's yours, Riley. Show us what you've got. This is your opportunity. Like, you wouldn't think
won't
that
have a better opportunity.
Yeah, no Bont, no Trelaw, no Richards.
Yeah.
There you go, mate. There are the keys to the city. And he just didn't do enough. He just didn't do enough. And hey, maybe an off game. This is one game that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And it's a community series game. Keep that in mind.
And the other part is, you don't go into it thinking your captain's going to get injured in the first couple of minutes. So obviously this is not his natural position. Like, he's just been elevated in the middle of the game to be one of the main midfielders.
Yeah, we're going off the fact that there looks like to be openings in the midfield and his junior potential. I think this is what we're looking at. But the eye test, and again, Janath, you talked about the eye test with De Conning. The eye test for me just wasn't fantastic with Sanders. Yeah. So I'm off Sanders, off Baz as well for now. But who knows?
Awesome. There's just one other player I want to briefly touch on before we move on to the next game, Tim English. So the part with Tim English is that the role is there again with Sam De Conning. The role was there, 85% ruck contest, which is more than what we got in 2023. When he went that incredible run that we just loved. But the possessions aren't. 14 touches, 7 marks. Now in that 2023 season, he's routinely hitting the 20 disposals. The marks were there. And the fact of the matter is, you're never going to get Tim English scoring bulk points from hitouts because that's not the kind of ruckman he is. But I didn't see enough from Tim English for him to enter into that conversation of Nank, TDK, Cherry as sort of that 2 out of 3 selection. And that concerns me because, again, with English, the opportunity is now going to be there for him to be the number 1 ruckman. Solely, no need for Sam Darcy to be in that mix because Jamari Ugle-Hagan isn't there. Darcy's going to have to shoulder that key forward role there. And so if English has the role, do you trust him to get back to any remnants of what his 2023 season looked like?
Not trust. I think it's more hope is the word rather than trust. And if you compare his counterpart there in Lloyd Meek, look at what he did in, what's that, 60% game time. Yeah. I know he's got the early buy, but comparing the two players, I'd almost be going towards a Meek rather than I would Tim English. I think we're just hoping with the pick, and it could happen. It could happen. but I didn't see anything that would suggest that is going to happen.
Roscoe, mate?
Yeah, look, he definitely didn't do enough to say you should consider picking me. And as you've said, there's just too many options that could be considered above him, better than him. You know, the last thing you'd want is to start a Team English and he drops 80s for the first 5 weeks, and then Sherry or TDK or Nankervis drop 110, and then you're automatically 150 points behind everyone else after 5 weeks, you know.
And you'll probably pick one of those other ruckmen anyway. Like, it's not only the points behind, you're also the possible trade behind there as well, because he just
100%.
He just doesn't pass the eye test, and that was the problem last year, DR. You'd probably remember me ranting about him because he was so good for me the previous year, but then he looks so passive. Like, you've just been paid, your captain's gone down, you're the only All-Australian in the team playing in a team that's normally stacked with All-Australians. Like, stand up, man. But he just doesn't do it, and I don't think that's part of his character. I just haven't seen Tim English assert himself on a game in a very long time.
Yeah, agree. Lacking a bit of that mongrel from a big man for me.
And you need it. You need it in your big men.
You do, absolutely.
Let's move on. Yeah. Let's move on then to a classic. How about this? Amy Community Series classic between the reigning premiers, your boys, the Brizzy Lions, and the Adelaide Crows. Lots to talk about here because I think there's so much Supercoach relevance in this game. And this is a game that I think we can really... The scores that these players got, I feel like would be quite reflective of the scores they would get in an actual game, just given the nature of the game. It was free-flowing, but at the same time, there was more clearances than there normally would have been in a practice match. So, Ross, I'll hand it to you to kick us off, mate. A player that impressed you from the Lions or the Crows, and then a player that didn't impress you.
No worries. I'll get onto that in a second. I just wanted to quickly give you a 3-second yay or nay. Adelaide Crows players celebrating after the preseason win over the reigning premiers, yay or nay?
Yeah, of course, yes.
You like it?
It's a competition. I mean, no matter if it's a preseason game or not, as a natural competitor, if you win a close game, I'm celebrating. I'm not going and high-fiving the fans in the crowd or anything straight after, but you can celebrate. That's nothing wrong with that.
They are. What do you reckon?
All I'd say is maybe that to just maybe a bit of a pat, well done, maybe a bit of a well done, son, rather than jumping around too much. But
he's born in the 80s.
No, look, I didn't take offense to it. Give it to him. Give it to him.
I didn't mind it. You know, they made a good comeback. They fought pretty hard.
Good on them. Yeah.
Oh, good on them.
Yeah.
It's not
so anyway, I'll get on with who impressed me. Someone who I had selected in my side in my very, very first draft ever got chopped off because I was a bit worried about an early buy and a lot of other risks. But Dane Zorko, I think he's my man again. He's back, ready to go. 123. He had 80% time on ground. He sort of drifted away in the last little bit of the game. But by then, his job was done. He'd already put up a very solid score. And there's just some numbers, you know, that I've seen floating around last season. Comes to DVP, the average score against his first 6 opponents across last season just makes me think, regardless of an early buy, we have to pick him. And if there's a cyclone, that means this game gets moved to round 3. If you don't pick him, you're a fool.
You're a fool is a very, very strong statement. But look, I tend to agree. I was on Locker Whitfield for much of the preseason, but after seeing what Zorko did, the fact that he plays West Coast and Richmond in back-to-back rounds, either side of the buy that's hide behind the couch sort of level. Like Weenie last year ahead of that Richmond game at the Gabba that he was going to go 150, and if you didn't own him, then you're just like, there's really no point in watching that game.
Yes, and he had 70 in quarter time. It was disgusting.
You sort of have to have a Brisbane Lion to start the season, don't you?
Yeah. So I think I'll take Zorko as my player who impressed me a lot. Another sort of easy one to sort of say didn't impress me. There was big tickets from Lachie Neale. DR, I'm sure you probably heard this as well. But Ty Gallup, he just never really got into the game. He had his chance. He had 50% time on ground. And, you know, he didn't really present himself as a genuine option. I mean, there's no doubt he'll probably end up being a decent forward option for you guys throughout the season. He'll get some game time, but probably just not one for Supercoach. So we'll take Zorko, but also, it's a shame to see Ty Gallop drop only a 24, but, it's part of the learning curve, and he's been pegged for a big year regardless. So hopefully we get to see that from him at some stage. What do you reckon, Janath? Who's on for you?
Oh, this is a tough one. Look, before I said that Jordan Dawson was the player that I went down from Bond, and I think the fact is yes, that DT to SC ratio isn't great, and he did butcher it a little bit, but the fact that Adelaide looked to use him as their kick from the midfield into the forward 50 at almost any cost tells me that he can get back to his 2023 best. Now, that season, when he went, I'm just getting that exact average. I think it's about 117 or something. There's possibility that he can get back to that form. And it really does come down to his use, but also the fact that he has that Supercoach game where it's you got the marks, you got the tackles. And we saw that in a really humid game, the 9 tackles, 7 marks. I'm not too worried about it's only 111, even with the 2 goals, because I think the disposal efficiency could have improved. The other player, which, sorry, D, I might be stealing your pick, but there's some other good options out here. Isaac Rankin. And the reason why I say this, I think it's a really good opportunity. You got Zork on one side, who has that soft tissue injury history. You have Rankin on now here. If we're thinking about players that you sort of don't want to trade into, these 2 are the players which I think about straight away, along with someone else we'll talk about a bit later. Because if they start hot and you have to trade them in, you're taking on that extra injury risk, given the fact that if they get injured, you have to trade them out. You waste a trade in bringing them in and trading them out. If there's a way that you can get Horne-Francis and Rankin as your F1 and F2, I saw enough from Rankin to say that he's going to command enough midfield time. And he's not playing as a midfield at CBAs, then drifting forward. He's playing as a midfield in CBAs and staying in that midfield around the ground in that stoppage. And the 90 SC is not great, but it's just a preseason game. He only played 77% time on ground, and we've routinely seen him play 90% time on ground. And that's what made him so good of a pick last year for me when I was doing my research, that he can play high time on ground. And if he gets 90% time on ground and is playing as a 50% midfielder, CBA midfielder, but also a stoppage midfielder, that's a deadly selection. I think Rankin is going to be a great pick for us as an F1 or F2 right now.
Yeah. I think the other thing we have to consider with Rankin is that they pretty much dumped him from the CBA rotation in the last quarter to give Sid Draper a run in there, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you pick Draper or you don't as an Adelaide selector. They don't pick him, then, you've got Rankin, who's probably going to bump that number up even more. So I think that's something we can also consider. Even though it's only a preseason game, there is scope for him to get even more midfield time if they don't pick Sid Draper.
I'm going to challenge you, DI. So I'm going to give you a player that I want to hear your thoughts on. It's a player that I would say neither impressed me nor sort of disappointed me. James Peatling.
I was going to say, is his initials JP? Holy dooly. I just had a chat with Swizz for about 50 minutes. It was meant to be a 15-minute chat. So make sure you check out the boys from Insider, absolute legends there. But geez, we had a good discussion about Peatling. And at the end of it, I was still as confused as what I was at the start of it. Now, Roscoe, you mentioned that Sid Draper came on towards the end of the game and got some really nice CBAs. Now, I've got another little PowerPoint that I've put together here. I just want to get it up because the CBA rotations here for this game were really, really interesting for me. So let's look at it overall. So you had Rankin there at 67.7%. So what I've noticed is that Rankin's 67.7, Crouch is 58.1, you've got Dawson at 54.8, and then you've got Peatling at 41.9. However, if we look at the CBA's quarter by quarter, so quarter one, it was 57.1, the same as Rankin, Sligo, and Crouch, with Dawson being the main one there. Quarter two, it's 42.9. Quarter three, it's 85.7. So for the third quarter, they've gone, here you go, mate. You're going to be the number one cog there. And then come the last quarter, 0%. So he's literally gone in quarter three, 85.7%, and then 0%. And I think that he's one that really, really suffered there from Draper coming in, because Rankin actually got 80%. So I think it was actually Peatling that really suffered there. And what I'm asking myself now is, were they just giving Draper an opportunity and saying, all right, you've done enough for us here, mate, off you go now, and you can get nothing and just have a bit of a rest in the forward line there? It really interests me because up until 3/4 time, he was actually on 77 points and he ended the game on 70. So actually lost 7 points. So the question for me is, what's that CBA percentage going to be? If it's over 50, then I'm still pretty keen on the pick. But if it's not, and he's going to spend a fair chunk of time forward, then I just don't like that. So they're the question marks that I've got. He scored really consistently when he was in there with that 40+%. But when he was taken out of there, he just didn't score. So that's a worry with it. If he's not in the CBAs, I don't think he's going to score overly well. So I don't know if you call that's my take on it, but they're the questions that I've got. Like, how realistic is it that Rankin's actually going to get that time? Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know.
What about the tackles, mate? Only 2 tackles, renowned tackler. Is it possibly a case where he doesn't start the season off too well, but when the wintry months come in and the tackle numbers go up, the contested possession numbers go up and that sort of thing, like perhaps we see that scoring come up that quicker, better?
I see that as a bonus for the pick, the fact that he only got 2, because we know, we've seen data on this, he loves to tackle. And so, look, game to game, it's always different. You have your high games, your low games. But I think that meat on the bone, we'll talk about that again. I think that's probably meat on the bone there, the fact that he only had 2. So you could look at that as a negative. Oh, he only had 2. But you could look at that as a positive. There's some extra points to raise that floor again. So I don't know how helpful I've been. I'm just so confused with the pick. It's all about your personal predictions.
What average does he need a score to have to be a successful pick, and what CBAs does he need to have for that average to happen?
If he can go 90 for me, I'm happy enough. I'm happy enough with the 90. That is fine. I think he needs over 50%.
Yeah.
For me.
I think that's the same. Same here. Yeah. On both of those. Ross, do you 90 and 50% CBAs? Is that what
I think that sounds fairly reasonable. I'm still in a similar predicament where I've got him in there, but I don't really have a better option where I can pivot up or down based on the money that I have left over. You know, like there's a few options that I'd love to go up to in the 400s range, but I don't have 100K sitting around ready to go. Same thing with the 190K rookies. I think I've covered off the ones that I really want. And I don't think I could find another one where I want to have them sitting at, M4.
Could it be now? Could it be our exit strategy, our mid-price exit strategy? So we don't start with him, but we've got your Cherries, your Olivers, your Days for people that are going there. He's out of all those mid-prices we're probably looking at, he's at the lowest price point. So let's just say that he does pop the first couple of weeks unexpectedly if you don't start him. I guarantee you that all the mid-prices you start aren't going to work out. There's going to be a failed pick, and that's just history suggests that that's going to be the case unless you're Joven or something. Even Joven didn't get it completely right at the start of last season. He made changes. So is Peatling our exit plan? Is he one that we don't start with, and then we survey the landscape, we get data for a couple of weeks, in-season data, and then if he does pop, we go, all right, I've got, and you could even change structure. I've got my Perryman, my Roberts, my Short, McClarry's, Macheras, Callahan.
Yeah.
Is that the play? Is it the exit strategy?
And possibly. I'm just going to add one thing on this as well. I know we're talking about James Peatling for way too long here, but it doesn't even need to be a midfielder. Let's say you start a Riley Sanders and he doesn't pop off and he gets a 339, he's averaging 60s and Peatling's going to 90s. You trade out Sanders and let's say you're starting to Ben Patton. You bring Patton down, and if you've got the midfield defense loop, you bring that up, and you got your Plonk Peatling in there, and it's a side swap in terms of price. So it's not just. I think that there's a really, really good justification for going that way. It's such a hard pick because I feel like he's such a big structural piece for the team. Where if he's not in there, your team looks so weird because he's been in there for the whole time. You may be running 4 midfield rookies. But if he's in there, he's sort of blocking the opportunity to go, for instance, a Trent Rivers up to a Dane Zorko. Like if you go Peatling down to a rookie. So it's so hard in terms of that regard. And I really don't know which way to go at the moment.
No, last thing, because we talked way too much on Peatling, but just want to point out, he was on 77 at three-quarter time. How many of us at three-quarter time would have said yes? How many would have said no? I was absolutely yes at three-quarter time. Absolutely yes. 77 points. What more would you want? How many more points do you want? But come the end of the game, he finishes on 70. So it's all about that last quarter getting taken out of the CBAs. Was that just a one-off? Here, Sid, just show us what you can do, son. We know what you can do. We've seen enough in the off-season from you, James. I don't know. But at three-quarter time, I guarantee you that more people than not would have kept him in their side.
Yeah. Is there a second player that you want to talk about, DR? One of your Ashcroft boys, Draper?
Geez, that was Peatling session there. Look, I'll just quickly say with Levi, what an impressive young man he is. If you compare his stats to someone like Hugh McCluggage, one of our superstars, it's another early pick. He made Hugh McCluggage look a little bit silly there. And I was saying to Roscoe pre-podcast as well, I believe, that at halftime his scoring wasn't overly good. I think it was around the 40s. But by the end of the game, that score in the 80s, he got 0% CBAs in that last quarter. And that's what I like about this pick, the fact he's got a lot of forward craft, I think more than Will. And that's what lots of people have said when comparing the two boys when they were juniors. Very similar in lots of ways, but they think that Levi's probably got that forward craft, and I think he'll push up into stoppages as well. Potential red flag could just be the fact that he's young. This is a very tough side to break into, off-season shoulder surgery. But again, on the flip side, and this is maybe potential red flag for maybe a Zorko, a Neil, maybe even someone like a Froggy Lester is one of our older players, that if we are icing games early and we've got a really friendly fixture, do they just take one of the veterans on and give them a good rest? So everything that I saw from Levi, super impressed with. The bloke that you can just find the ball. Doesn't need CBAs, doesn't even need to play in the midfield. He can play that half-forward role, push up into stoppages, impact the scoreboard. So, extremely impressed with him.
Yeah, awesome. And Will, just very quickly, yes or no? Okay, how about this? So I'm going to put something to you, mate. Rank the following in order. I think this is the best way to do it. Clary, Chera, Day, Ashcroft, Callaghan. Same for you, Ross.
All right. I haven't seen what Clary's done, but I'm just going to say Clary.
130.
Settle down, Clary. Settle down. You're a lock anyway, mate. Settle down, son. So I'm going to go Clary, then Chera. I'm actually going to go Finn Callaghan next, because I think he is right up there with the number 1 to 2 midfield cog at GWS. I'm then going to go Ashcroft, and I'm then going to go Will Day.
Will Day. All right.
Sorry, Will.
Ross. Jeez.
Yeah, I think Clary has to come first upon hearing that 130. That just solidifies that a little bit further. I don't know. It's tough. I think probably for me, Will Day, maybe second last. I think last I'm going to go with Finn Callaghan. He's turned down the Saints to go and stay at GWS.
He's salty.
He's turned down the contract.
He's salty.
And then the other two, you can flick him in whichever way you want. I won't be picking any of them except Clayton Oliver, so, But I definitely will not be picking you, Finn Callaghan.
Take that, Finley.
That's a stitch up. But no, I think that says a bit about Ashcroft. Rather than judging him off his form, I think it's more so about who are the ones around him that are around that price. So I don't think you can really start 3 or 4 of them, because that's the point you'd have to get to really be considering Ashcroft starting him. And that round zero, playing round zero against the other options in there, except for Callaghan. Oh, I guess Day also plays round zero. So really, the 2 options we put at the top of the 2 without the round zero, they don't play there, so they don't have the early season buy in Clary and Chera. And I think this is the perfect segue to go into talk about the Greater Western Sydney Giants getting smashed by the mighty Carlton Blues.
Getting smashed, yeah, I love it, yeah. Look at a smile on his face.
Look, it was good to get through a game without injury. When Mitch McGovern went down, I thought, oh no, here we go again. Some just can't get through a game without injury. But look, all's well ends well. Fair few talking points here, and I think this is one of those games where, compared to the Lions and the Crows game, very, very uncontested game, this one, in terms of the stoppages weren't really abundant. So any midfielder that did well did really well. And I think that's where I'm going to start us off by talking about Adam Cerra. He had a stretch. I'm not going to talk explicitly about this game, but I just want to bring up a point. Between round 6 and 16 in 2023, he averaged 121.1. And in that stretch, he had 7 scores above 125. Now, that's not top 8 numbers. That's Bont, Dacos, Neil numbers. Like, we've seen what the bloke can do. And at 447k, I think he is the perfect 1A, 1B with Clary to anchor that mid-price midfield in there, both as players that, if they stay injury-free, they should really be able to elevate up into another level. And I saw so much from Cerra in this game, which brought me back good memories from that 2023 stretch. 108 Supercoach points, 21 disposals. But the thing that was really good to see is that he looked so classy with the ball. He even kicked a goal from the centre square. Like, the bloke was just, like, freakish in this game.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
But he's also being used as one of the options going inside 50, and I think that's really important for a player like Cerra, who's a good ball user. Dia?
I think I may even be hotter than him than you are, because, and controversial, Roscoe, you haven't got him in your side. I'm going to call him a must-have in your midfield. He's a must-have in your midfield, this bloke, along with Clary. Look at what he did, and then look at that time on ground. 57%. If he can do this in 57% time on ground, what's he going to do at 75, 80%? Now, keep in mind, no Tom Green. This midfield wasn't the strongest midfield that GWS are going to put out. But also keep in mind, Carlton have a very nice run to start the season. And I think that this bloke could be a really relevant vice captain or captain option in the first 6 weeks of the season. I'm going to go that far. What I've been doing is I've actually been looking at Richmond's fixture and saying, okay, who's playing Richmond? Which midfielders have I got? Okay, and I'm trying to slot a few blokes in nice and early. I'm also looking at GWS's fixture and saying, well, which premium players am I looking to select here? Because Mr. Bedford is going to give them a little bit of trouble, I think, from time to time. So,
can I add something on that though, Dia? This GWS midfield is terrible. Like, apart from Bedford, who's going to tag someone, if you can get a secondary midfielder at one of the clubs that is playing GWS, they will towel teams up. And the reason why I say this is that Cripps was the one that got tagged in a preseason match, nonetheless. Cerra was the one that went off. Because there's no one. He got Bedford, Callaghan, Cornelio, and James Leake. Like, it's not an imposing midfield at all without Tom Green. And I think that's going to be something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
But look, for time's sake, I'm just going to go with the player that disappointed me. I'm going to go with Cody Angove. Player that was in my sort of team, saw good signs from him, kicking a couple of goals against Sydney the previous week, but he just didn't get the time on ground, only 33% time on ground. Now, even with those players that have the suspensions to come back in, he just feels like the perfect green vest, red vest sort of player. He's on the periphery. I don't think you can really trust him as an option to start the season.
Agree.
Yeah. GWS do tend to have a couple of these players. I remember it was Rouston a few years ago who just sort of looked like he was going to play, and then he gets subbed off, then he gets subbed on, and then bang, you're done. So that might be definitely one to watch out for with Cody Angove. The obvious pick for me, someone who impressed, was Tom De Koning. Obviously, I didn't really get to watch much of this game. I was actually out at the time, but his numbers look really good, and I think 58% time on ground, he looks like he could be one. Just provides a lot of value in the ruck line, and I think I'm going to be taking him in to start the season. A less obvious one who Janath spruiked up a lot to me privately is Lucas Camporeale, who might start on a wing in round 1, which could be promising for us who are looking for another midfield rookie to fill out the bench. That sort of 8 marks tells me that he's working up and down the ground, sort of trying to get to be that option in transition. And, 65 Supercoach is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. So, he could be a potential option for us coming in to start the season. I think one that probably sort of disappointed me a little bit, I don't really know. It's tough to say. These GWS rookies, as you said, Janath, with Angove, Ware, Rouston, even Hannaford to a little extent, you sort of hope for maybe one of them to jump out off the page, but none of them really did. So I think that's where I sit on this game. And, without being able to watch it, I can't really say too much, but hopefully that sort of sums it up a bit.
Yeah, and just one other thing on Campo is that he's already ahead of Jackson Binns, and I think that's really important to consider. And he may be ahead of Sam Doherty. Now, I don't know why Sam Doherty didn't start the game, whether it's the fact that he's not part of the best 23. He came on in the second quarter, played the game out. But this may be signalling towards the fact that Campo Reale is already ahead of Doherty and is definitely ahead of Binns, who is playing in the second.
Wow.
So, given that, the fact we play Richmond in round 1 and then West Coast and North Melbourne all by round 6, he only needs one spike game. And we see with rookies that have that early spike, the fact of the matter is they maybe not in the first game. That's one of the issues. If he scores 140-40, then his price generation by the fourth week is cooked. But if he can have a consistency in role, I don't think that he's a green vest, red vest candidate because we don't really sub off wingers and they're pretty defined roles in there. He could be a really good rookie option at M11 for us, just generating cash.
Love it, mate. All right, I'll jump in with who impressed me. And I already touched on him, but Finn Callaghan, he really impressed me. We know about his talent. Hey, Roscoe gave him a big drive-by for not accepting the 17 mil. And hey, I think you've got to be enough not to do that. But no, he did impress me. And I think particularly with Tom Green out, he really steps up now. And I was really impressed to see him, unlike someone like Rolly Sanders. GWS said, here you go, Finn.
Yes.
It's your opportunity, mate. He took it. Sanders didn't. And so that's why I'm so impressed with Finn Callaghan, because there was probably a fair bit of expectation on him, given some of their outs. And I think that he really stepped up. So Finn Callaghan, tick for you, my friend. And look, who didn't impress me? It's hard, isn't it? There's not a huge list. I'm going to go Cogs. So maybe a bit harsh, given the fact that he's come back from injury, but we know what his talent's like. What's that, a 56? Probably not good enough for me. I know there was a couple of people that sent me a DM or two about asked me what I think about Cogs. And I think this really reaffirms what I was thinking, that, there's plenty of better options than him. And probably the other one, just want to touch on and maybe give you more questions and answers here, is James Leake. So 61 Supercoach points, 7 kicks, 11 handballs, the 4 tackles, kicked to behinds, almost hit the scoreboard there.
The Giants and CBAs.
Yeah, I put a tweet out as well. Their first 4 clearances were all James Leakes. So GWS had 4 clearances at one stage in the first quarter. All of them were James Leake, and I think Callie might have got their 5th one. So things looking really, really good in regards to role there. The week before, though, I'd basically crossed him off the list. So I'm still really unsure here. I'll throw it back to you, Janath. Is he currently in your side, or do you have too many question marks about him?
I was chatting with Swizz about this. The fact that with James Leake, when there's so much uncertainty about the D6 spot, I think you've got to go with the player that, yes, they may not be able to have the best scoring long term when some of these players come back, but you know that Tom Green's going to be missing in round 1. If we can have some form of solidity to start the season at D6, which is a position that I think so many coaches are struggling with, the role is there for James Leake, and he should get a good stint in that midfield if he is named in round 0. Obviously, we get another free look, which is a great thing about these sort of Giants rookies here. Like, he's in my team at the moment. I've got Leake, Pryor, Reed. I've got Leake on field ahead of Pryor and Reed from D6 to D8.
Don't mind that. And I think he's a loop option as well for when he's got his bye. And depending on how many players are running from that particular bye, it also helps with potentially some rookie roulette down back as well. So don't mind that at all. And he's currently in my side also.
Yeah, he's sitting in my team as well. I'm quite similar to you, Janath. I've got Zach Reed starting defensive 6 with Leake and Bo Allen on the bench.
That's right.
Controversial.
Look, anomaly. No one scored minus 12. Like, come on.
You can't.
That's
No, but you can't get any worse than that. And I still think they'll back him in. He'll be able to play some games and churn out some scores. I think he'll still be okay.
We'll talk about Bo coming up in a little bit. On this game, there's two other players I want to touch on. They're both Carlton players. Ollie Hollands. I think this is a decisive one, and I didn't mention him as a disappointment before, but he would be in the disappointment category for me. There's a couple of reasons why. So, as I was mentioned, this was a game that was so uncontested. Like, it was hard to watch in a way. As the only reason I watched it really is one for Supercoach and two because I'm a Carlton fan. But 17 touches. Now that is a concern for me because when there's so much pill going around in terms of thing, you don't see any of the Carlton players. Like Chera was on 21 touches before he didn't play the last quarter, but no one really had more than 21 touches. Like it was Nick Haynes and Adam Chera with 21 touches there. And it's a really interesting because when so many other of the other halfback pigs like your Jaden Short and your Matt Roberts are just collecting so much disposal in these practice matches, I want to see Ollie be a bit more active. Like I was saying earlier in the preseason, I saw him in the practice match like scream for the ball. He wasn't necessarily doing that. And along with that, one kick-in out of 11 total kick-ins or 12 total kick-ins for the Blues. It's just like, what can his realistic ceiling be? And the more I come to see it, I would much prefer to pay up for Clayton Oliver and Adam Chera, or I'm going to give you boys something a bit different. Cooper Lord. Now, hypothetically, let me tell you this.
Yeah.
256K. What is the difference in role between a Cooper Lord at 256K compared to a James Peatling at 352K? They're both probably the fourth or fifth midfielder in their respective teams. They both don't have an early season bye. Cooper Lord plays Richmond, North Melbourne, and West Coast in his first 6 rounds. If we're considering Peatling as an option, why are we discounting Cooper Lord? He did score quite well. I think he was 65 and 78 in his 2 games last year, which were both full games. And now he's probably behind Cripps, Chera, Hewitt, and when Walsh comes back in, yes, he may be the 4th or 5th banana, but is that any different from a James Peatling? That's just something I want to put out to you boys there. Not necessarily to say that Cooper Lord's a better pick than Peatling, but I think that maybe that is a good option to go down to in that sort of 200, 250K mark if you've already got the 198K rookies or that sort of elevated price rookie there.
I can't add much to him. I know that Damon's a big fan as well. Shout out to your legend from Supercoach Edge. But yeah, I'll just throw this one to you, mate. I couldn't tell you much about the man.
Roscoe?
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat, unfortunately. My one query would be if you guys are trying to start Chera, I don't know if you could start both of them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but that just goes to show how I feel like we're so sucked into the name, I reckon, with Peatling. That's one of the things that I'm worried about a little bit is the role isn't there. We know that. But how much of it is it the fact that we know that Peatling can score when he has the role? It's not saying that Cooper Lord's the best pick here. I'm just showing the difference in philosophy between two players that have the same role, that play in similar teams in terms of the way that they move the ball. It's just something to consider there, I reckon. But whilst I let you boys ponder that one, I will move on to the next game, Gold Coast Sydney. Honestly, I think that every AFL fan wanted this game to finish in the first minute where Mac Andrew got like a chest blow and didn't play any of the game, really. Then Errol Goulden broke his ankle, which just is, or foot, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but
Shattering.
That's just shattering news there. I'm going to pass it over to you. I don't really have too many takeaways from this game. Both teams were missing so many players. Gold Coast were missing Flanders and Took. Sydney were missing just about everyone. Heaney, Chad Warner. You had Dane Rampy missing. I know I'm missing other names as well, but there was just, look at some of the names on the Sydney team. You're not going to expect half of them to line up in round. Brodie Grundy, what did you take out of this game in terms of players that impressed versus didn't?
Well, look, I'll go with one of our rookie picks in Angus Sheldrick. Now, when Callum Mills went down, I know a lot of people just assumed, hey, Sheldrick, here you go, mate. it's all yours. But we saw that didn't have a huge impact on him. But now, given the fact that we've also got Goulden down, I think he's the man to really, really step up. Now, it was tough because lots of players were missing, but we've seen in the past that he can score really, really well when given the opportunity. I know that lots of people last year were pretty keen on him if he had have got the role, but very, very competitive, and obviously made the grand final, so had a really solid season as a team, did Sydney last year. But I think we look at just the basic stats here: 100 Supercoach points, 13 kicks, 9 handballs, 3 marks, 7 tackles. That's what I really like to see there. So there's a nice floor for him just with that tackle count. 14 contested, so not afraid to get his hands dirty. Probably the main concern here is if you look at his efficiency there, so only 45%, but I still think that can be a positive. Knowing that he's got 100 at 45% efficiency, once he cleans it up, and I'll guarantee he's not going to go this season at 45% efficiency, even if it's at 60, 65, then that 100 then pushes up towards a 115 or more. So again, not expecting hundreds every week from him, but at the price, 160, he's not a first-year rookie. He's a mature body now. He's got the opportunity there. We've seen him in the role before when he's got opportunity and he's performed well. Very impressed with him. So I'll go with Sheldrick for the bloke that impressed me.
It's a great pick there, mate. And someone that didn't quite impress you, mate?
Someone that didn't quite impress me. Well, there's no one that hugely stands out to me. I'm just looking at the names here. Probably Bailey Humphrey, I'll go with, because I know that lots of people were touting him as a potential mid-price pick in our forward line. Young star. I owned him, was a year or two ago now. But I just don't think that 56 points is enough for him. Now, we look at the time on ground. That's 82%. I think he got a fair opportunity there, 11 contested. But, 20 touches for only a 56 probably doesn't do it for me with that early buy as well. I just think that there's plenty of other options that we've got, and you don't need to look too funky here and go with someone like a Bailey Humphrey. So I think he's someone I had him slightly on the watch list just from very, very far back with the small binoculars, but I've chucked the binoculars away now. Not really interested.
Yeah. And 54% CBAs. How much does that come down to when Flanders and Toot come back in? Probably adds even more speculation to that as well.
Yep.
Roscoe?
I think I'm going to take a player who I had in my initial side. He's since unfortunately fallen out just due to a number of necessary structure changes. The Noah Coaster, Noah Anderson, playing at home, put up another nice score. Definitely nothing to deter you from starting him. But just the lack of options in defence has just made me sort of top up big there. My midfield, I just sense the value coming more with those 190K and below rookies. Someone had to go, the Bont fell out. I wanted to jump on Nick Dacos. Someone had to sort of go, and it was just Noah Anderson. So I think I'm still pretty impressed with how he went in this game, but I just don't have him at the moment. I'd love to get him back in. And if he goes big again against Essendon next weekend, then it might be a case of, yes, we do it. But for now, I don't have him, but still very impressed with him. One that I'm going to throw out there that was, someone just like a 1% kind of watch that didn't really impress me at all was Braden Campbell. Now, he's never really been a Supercoach relevant pick, but I did notice that he kicked 5 in their first game against GWS, the unofficial sort of match simulation. I thought, well, that could be a start for possibly in some improved scoring. Got no idea what his price is like. I think he's a forward in game, but 39, 2 behinds. He just didn't really get anywhere near it, and definitively ruled himself out for me. Even though you could say it would be pretty silly to consider starting him after 5 in an unofficial match sim, but you never know. He's an academy player, and he could have shown signs of a breakout, maybe a move between high half forward and midfield with Goulden dropping out, but I can't see that being the case now. So, Janath, up to you.
All right. Well, look, I'm going to go with the obvious. I'm going to go with the obvious one, and that's Lockie Weller. No, I'm just kidding.
You threw me.
Matt Ross.
He's there for you. Where are you going, Weller?
Lockie, well, no. Matt Roberts, 119 Supercoach, was having a picnic by himself out the back there. 27
The quarterback.
touches, 11 marks. He is the
Quarterback.
proper quarterback. We love to use that term around here. There's a couple of quarterbacks around the league at the moment. You got Naz at the Saints. You sort of got Jordan Clark at the Dockers, and you got Matt Roberts at Sydney. I think that is if he plays that role, he's going to average 105, 110 this season. My only concern is the fact that, one, it was a preseason game. Justin McInerney moved into the midfield to cover Goulden. And I think Justin McInerney, we saw at the end of last year, the fact that Justin McInerney in the team versus out of the team and how that impacts Roberts indirectly because of the fact that McInerney plays on the wing and sort of settles down that Swan structure. But then he went into the CBAs today. I don't know what it is or what the exact link there may be, but the fact that Roberts looked like he commands that Sydney backline. The concern that I was going to say is the fact that Dane Rampy didn't play, the fact that Tom McCann was playing forward because Logan McDonald wasn't playing, and Hayden McLean is still tracking along in his rehab, meant that Nick Blakey had to play more accountable, and that indirectly meant that Matt Roberts was solely given the opportunity to do all the rebounding. We've seen in years gone by, since Jake Lloyd was really picking it up, Sydney just haven't had a defender that commands all of the ball. They sort of distribute it by committee. You have Rampy taking possession. You have Roberts taking possession. Blakey taking possession. We know Blakey to be the player, but he only had 12 touches in this game in 43% time on ground. So I need another look at Roberts, and thankfully we get that look against Hawthorn, which is a good matchup as well, just to sort of see whether or not he's for real, because it's not an easy matchup. It's not a hard matchup. It's sort of going to be a really good litmus test there. I was baiting before. Lockie Weller, though. Again, John O'Carroll, shout out to him. He was telling me to have a watch on him. 19 touches in 50% time on ground. He had 7 marks. He did come off with a bit of hamstring tightness, but he did finish off the game there. Was playing as a centre bounce midfielder for Gold Coast, but I don't think that role will exist when Tuke and Sam Flanders come back in. But look, there are worse options, definitely. And we've seen that Weller is a player that Gold Coast normally put sort of a lot of emphasis into. At 301k as defender, is he just maybe someone that you could have on your watch list as a player that, is there, if he scores 100 next week against Essendon, would he come into starting team calculations?
No.
He's not someone what I hate doing is jumping on a mid-price like this that has been not on my radar like whatsoever the whole preseason. So I feel like I'd be too reactive in selecting him. Yeah. But I see a world where he can be a good pick. Just for me, I'm not going to do all this preseason research and then after one game, whack a break in. Yeah. Again, though, we do get a free look at him. And if you're someone like myself that's not overly keen and you're feeling a little bit pressured to spend up heavy down back, then he could be that player that allows you to not have to necessarily structure up that way and give you a little bit more freedom elsewhere. So I'm not going to say absolutely no, but I'd be pretty surprised if you end up in my side.
Awesome. I think I'm going to take the opposite and say absolutely no.
Absolutely
his soft tissue history is just something I don't really want to get behind. The mouths to feed, we had this debate last year. We had Flanders, we had Sexton, we had Jeffrey, we had Ewan, we had Ballard. Now we've got Noble, we've got Rioli. I just can't see a defined role for him. And, we don't want to pick someone where there's a bit of uncertainty there unless we can still see indicators that they're going to score. I didn't watch too much of this game, but I don't think he took any kick-ins. I could be wrong.
No. He wasn't playing he wasn't really playing as a defender. He was playing around the ball.
Yeah, so I think I would actually rather be more confident if he was playing that Gold Coast designated kicker role where they just sort of chip it around the whole game. Yeah. Some of their players can rack up big scores that way, but I don't know. If he's not in that role, I'd be very unconfident in picking him at all.
Cool. I think with that, we should move on to talk about St Kilda and Port Adelaide. Yep. Now, before we begin, Ross, tell me, what was that? That was so... Watching the first half of that game, you were like, have they just have they just brought the blokes off the bus and like chucked them out there and just said, go out and do whatever you want? Like there was no structure, nothing about the Saints in this game.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Our side's a bit decimated at the moment, and
those
more injuries came, and I just think Port Adelaide were ready to fire. You come out, you start a game 6 goals down. Sort of easy just to put the cue in the rack for the day and say, you know, we're just going to go through it a motion. I'm not necessarily saying we did that, because I saw there were signs that the players were still trying and, you know, just had no answer to what Port Adelaide were offering, which was a bit disappointing. But, you know, I sort of had a look at the team on paper, and the team on paper I think will front up for round 1 and sort of expected a little bit. I mean, we've got Marshall and Sinclair to come back in. And I know I said I could see us finishing between that 9 and 13 on the team preview with DR a couple of weeks ago. But now I think having a look at the debutants that we're probably going to have to name, the forward line and the back line that has become evident to me across the 2 games, I don't think will go very well at all. So it's unfortunate, but there's still a lot of Supercoach takeaways. I think one of them...
Let's start with the yes. Let's do that.
Hugh Boxall. If this guy gets named in round 1, I think he can be a high-impact scorer for us on our midfield bench. I was talking about him with Swizz earlier. He had a 1.13 points per minute, which was a team high for us.
Very nice.
And obviously, that's quite a high points per minute rate for anyone. So that was something that's really promising. I know that 2 goals would have boosted that, but he's come out of the draft. He's trialled well in both games, and he looks unlikely bolter for round 1. With Sinclair and Marshall to come back in, I can't see him dropping out. I think there's probably a few more that would go out before him, and I'm just hoping that he can get a spot so that I can take him in. One that was very disappointing for me again was Toby Travalia. Obviously, he's a high pick. He'll get a go some stage during the season, but it's clear that it's probably not early on. He only played the last quarter last week versus the Blues, and he only came on for a half yesterday. So, you know, I don't think it shows that he's ready yet. You know, he did show some nice things, but from a Supercoach perspective, it's a pass for now, especially when he was in like 40% of sides 3 weeks ago. I think that's one that you all need to be moving on.
Yeah. And look, he may be a good downgrade option when we actually need the downgrades coming up later in the season as well. So
yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Something we can consider there. Look, I'll go next, and the easy one to say here would be Connor Rosie, but I'm actually going to go with Jack McRae. So the reason why I went this way is in a team that was so flat all day, Jack McRae was the one that wasn't. And he could have scored 80. I just want to see that tenacity and that hunger to go after the ball, whether that be a clearance, whether that be around the ground. And if we reminisce back to his best Bulldogs days, he was the one that was always leading up for the mark from the kick-in. He was always the one that was sort of spreading around the ground to get that mark on the wing and then kick it in board or kick it inside 50. He was always the one looking to go inside 50, and all of those indicators were present against Port Adelaide. And that showed, look at the scoring there. 117 points when no one else has gone above 80. Oh, sorry, Boxall went above 80, but only McRae went otherwise. 32 touches, 5 tackles, 16 contested possessions. Like, that's a game high. 7 clearances. All of the indicators we wanted to see in preseason against a really strong Port Adelaide midfield were there to be seen. And I'm really impressed with Jack McRae. I think he's a player that we can all safely start. And look, he could be our F2 or 3 at the end of the season, and he wouldn't surprise me. Like, this is a gift that we've been given from Bevo mainly, and then Supercoach. So I think that's something we should all be locking in. A player that didn't necessarily impress me. Ooh, this is tough. I want to say 2 players, but I also want to leave one for DR as well. Look, I reckon there's enough players to talk about. I'm going to do a 2-for-1 Port Adelaide package. Joe Berry and Josh Sin. So opposite ends of the ground. Joe Berry, he was on about 7 points at halftime. I was telling to you, DR, that everyone else is on about 50, and Berry's stuck down the bottom there on 7. It was like, well, that's not a great sign when everyone else is sort of killing it. He's not. But look, he definitely did sort of develop into the game, and I don't think that he's a bad option. He's going to have good job security. The role isn't really there. He's playing as a high half forward. He's not really going up the stoppage, but he is playing He's going up the ground. He's coming back. It reminds me a lot of your half forwards, Ross, in terms of Higgins and sort of Butler that go up the ground and then come back as well. So he's still a consideration, but he didn't really impress in this game. And then Josh Sin, again, I think he's one that we can sort of wipe off our sort of notepads in when you've got Logan Evans, Miles Bergman, Kane Farrell, and then perhaps the surprise packet. I don't know if you're going to talk about him, DR, but Jeremy Finlayson is now the designated kick at Port Adelaide.
Yes,
what in the world is going on here? But yeah, those are sort of the main avenues out of defence. And I think Josh Sin is really back in the pecking order, not in the team, but as one of those kickers out of defence. DR.
I'm going to go with one bloke that impressed me, one bloke that didn't. I'm going to go with the two captains of each respective club. So Kangaroos, it's a super obvious one, and Jack Steele. So let's compare the pair. Jack Steele, so 79 Supercoach points, 13 kicks, 9 handballs, 4 tackles, 5 marks, only 5 contested. So that is something that really surprised me there. And then we go across the board here to Connor Rozee, 161 points, 17 kicks, 22 handballs, 7 marks, 7 tackles, hits a scoreboard, 12 of those contested. Why am I going Jack Steele when I've got Connor Rozee here? There shouldn't be any reason, maybe apart from the bye. I know that there was a few people that had Steele in their sides and were pretty keen on him. I was hoping Steele would actually play a really good game because I've never been keen on him. There's no way that I'll be selecting him, but just didn't do enough. Again, like Roscoe mentioned that he hasn't got high hopes for St Kilda. So where's the captain stepping up here? Sorry, John O'Carroll. We've talked about you a couple of times, mate. I do apologise because I know you love the man, but just didn't produce enough from me. And this is why I think that Steele won't be in the top 10 midfielders for us this season. So pretty disappointing, Jack.
Yeah. So a couple of other sort of players. I was watching this game quite closely and put up the notes, DR. If you want to just scroll over to them on the other side on the next one. So I've got some notes here that I was just taking down as went through sort of the verdicts to talk about. Harry Boyd is an interesting player. Now, with Cooper Sharman having thumb surgery, I don't normally know how long thumb surgery takes to recover from. Is it possible now that this does mean that Rowan Marshall, or even Max King as well, perhaps Rowan Marshall has to play as a key forward, even if he doesn't want to start the season? If Harry Boyd is the number one ruckman, then yes, perfect. You lock it in. We were talking offline about whether Boyd is a lock or not. I was sort of posing up Archer Reid, who's someone we'll discuss in the next game. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind there. Liam O'Connell, I don't know what they're doing on Fox Footy, but they kept calling him the Irishman and never by his name. He was very, very annoying. But he's a defensive rookie as well. So is he, Ross, someone that you see in the round one side?
Look, he played wing against Carlton, and then he sort of played more defensively yesterday. But I don't really know. I don't know much about him. As you say, he's an Irishman. So last year was his first year in Australia, learning the game, learning the system. And he's just sort of come out of nowhere to be above players, even like Ari Schoenmaker in defence. So he must be doing something right. But I can't really tell you. I don't really follow Sandy too much, other than, looking at players that are sort of coming in and out of the AFL side. And he wasn't one last year who was really close to that. So I think if he plays wing, that's probably not so conducive to scoring. Defensively, I could probably see him playing a bit more of a lockdown role rather than a sort of kicker role either way. So I think he's one for consideration, but I'm not sure how long his tenure in the team will last and whether his role will be any good at all. So I probably will be avoiding him at this stage.
Cool. I'm just going to give my take on a couple of other players from this game. So Angus Hastie was really impressive again, and I think I saw enough from him against Carlton and St Kilda to say that I'm happy to have him at my M10 or M11. So in the team sort of reveal, I don't really see much change in there. Had some really nice intercept marks. Looks to be a lock in that Saints back seven, unless, Ross, you think otherwise. He's impressed me in both practice matches. And what do you reckon?
No, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think Hastie is considered a much more stable chance in my mind to be sticking around in that back seven than O'Connell. He looks to have more of a Supercoach friendly role, as you say, intercept marks, moving the ball out of the back line, whereas O'Connell doing more of the dirty work, spoils, tackles, so on and so on. I think I'd probably rather Hasty if I had to take one of the two. But the annoying thing is that Hasty's obviously a midfielder and O'Connell defender.
Well, that's my question. I think the question is Boxall versus Hasty or both. Can you select both?
Well, I actually discussed this with Swizz. We did a good recap of this game that will be dropping on the Supercoach Insider channel soon. But I think where I sit on it is Hasty's probably more likely to stay in the side long term over Boxall, who, we get a couple of midfielders back, might be more likely to drop out. But I think Boxall's game style and his inside midfield role sort of gives him a better position in terms of better scoring rather than Hasty, who'll play in the back line.
So for me, security versus scoring potential, pretty much. That's what you're saying.
And
I think it's security versus scoring potential for me. Both of them are probably going to play round one. I'll be honest. I think both of them will be in there, which means Boxall's probably a better option to start. But over the long run, I could see, say they bring Sinclair into the midfield, it'll help Hasty and it'll probably drop Boxall out. So I don't really know.
I think that the inclusion of Sinclair is the biggest one, because we saw Wangani Malera in this game start in his quarterback role in defence, but then he transitioned into the midfield. He was at the first centre bounce in quarter 3. So he was one of the major culprits of poor ball use for the Saints. But his passage of 1, 2, 3 chains were really dynamic. When Sinclair comes back in, I think Wangani Malera is the biggest piece that's affected by this. When Sinclair's in the team, if he's playing in defence, Wangani Malera is probably a 95 to 100 guy. If Sinclair's in the midfield, how does that impact Boxall? How does that impact sort of Hugo Garcia? But then that positively impacts Wangani Malera. I think Sinclair's effect on this entire team is so profound, and without being able to get a look at it, I think we're almost going in blind. So for that reason, I would go Hasty, because I know that Sinclair in the team shouldn't affect Hasty so long as Hasty is named. Whereas if Sinclair comes in, he's probably going to impact Wangani Malera. He's probably going to impact Boxall. And he's probably going to impact Garcia. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I agree. That said, Sinclair's 29 and I don't think he plays his best footy in the midfield. So there's also every chance that when he comes back, he just continues playing half back like he scored so well last season. As you say, he'll affect a number of players. I think Hugo Garcia is the least likely to be affected by them. As you wrote there, he's symptomatic of the poor performance of the team. But as we saw in the game against Carlton, he's just got that midfield role. He was one of the main 3, which is a bit surprising to me. I thought there might have been some others pushing along a bit further. But I think that's a role that I'm still happy to take on for Hugo Garcia to play forward for my team as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we've basically touched on Max Hall as well. The role isn't there. I think even though he has DPP, he's playing as a pure half forward in a team that already has half forwards that we know don't score really well in Higgins and Butler. There are better midfield and forward options. And then, we got Sinberry and Finlayson. So if you want to have a full look at these notes, they're available both on Twitter, but all of the notes across all the practice matches are available in our season guide. So you haven't got your season guide yet, you can get all your preseason notes there. Let's move on.
Talk about JHF. Lock JHF as well. I don't think we
didn't even talk about him, but
you don't need to talk about him.
He's a lock of the highest order.
Yeah, don't be silly. Don't be silly. Yeah. Lock him in.
It's not one to overthink. No butters. No butter. Pre-butters, he's probably a lock. Post-butters, no butters. He's like lock.
Yep.
Throw away the key.
And one last thing as well. Sorry. No Sharman, no Owens for us round 1, I think. So we might actually get to see Isaac Keeler playing. But I'm just going to put it out there. He'll be a key forward. I wouldn't recommend jumping on him.
Look good.
Yeah, he did look good, but I can't see him playing as a key forward, backup ruck, being a really good option for us. So if we see Keeler, he's one that's not mentioned there, but I would pass on him.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's go talk about West Coast North. Honestly, this was my favorite game to watch of the round. It was, I don't know what it was. They were throwing haymakers at each other. And then Liam Baker kicks the winning goal, celebrates accordingly. I don't know. Maybe DR's a bit unhappy about that he kicked the match-winning goal And he went,
give it to him. New club. It's West Coast.
first goal
Get
for the
around me,
club.
boys. Come on. Yeah,
Come on, he
I love
bet
that.
North Melbourne in a practice match. But no, let's be serious. All right. I think it's pretty obvious to say, and I don't really need to talk about these two players because there's so much to talk about. Harry Sheezel is, if we have locks, if JHF is a lock, Harry Sheezel is a lock. Throw away the key into the Seine River. You're never going to find the key again. Do we agree?
Yes.
You don't need to talk about him. He's
a defender.
Select Harry Sheezel.
We're never gonna get Harry Sheezel as a defender again. If you think about it.
No.
Like in his Supercoach career, he's never going to be defender status skin. I think we just got to lap this final hurrah up before he goes on to becoming an uber premium for us for many years to come. Tristan Sherry,
lock.
Are we lock? Almost lock? Like, how are we feeling?
Hasn't left my side since the team picker opened. Just has not left my side. Now, he's playing against Flynn, so half decent competition. 141 points, 14 tackles.
The tackles.
Man, 13 contested, 77% time on ground, only 50% disposal efficiency, meat on the bone there. Yeah. I'm so happy to pay up for this guy. So happy to pay up. And I haven't really had a second thought about it, to be quite honest.
And do you know what, DR? I think in round one, playing against Tim English, when you don't need to start a loop. I would be really confident in smacking the C straight on Tristan Cherry, and then you start to get your loops when rookies get dropped or you have the bye rounds, that sort of thing. Cherry, I put out a tweet a couple of days ago that off the top 8 mids that from last year by average, 3 of them are injured: Butters, Bond, Trelaw. 4 of them have an early bye: Dacos, Merritt, Neal, and Dunkley. And Caleb Throng is the only one that's either not injured or doesn't have an early bye, knock on wood.
Yeah.
When you look at that, Tristan Cherry or the Ruckman, Harry Sheezel, they're like the only 2 players above 600k that you may end up paying up for, like at this rate. So
absolutely,
it's just a player that I feel like you just start lock in sort of thing. Ross, your sort of player that impressed you didn't impress you, mate, apart from those 2.
Yeah, I'll go with the player that impressed me, but also surprised me. Finn O'Sullivan dropped a nice 99. I saw in your notes, I didn't get to watch this game again. I was pretty much out all of yesterday, but, saw that he's playing that nice sort of wing halfback role, moving the ball around, taking marks. He got some contested possessions and, I think we'll look at the next game and we'll look at a man, Nathan O'Driscoll. He wasn't looking too good when we started recording, but it could be a matter of an easy swap to Finn O'Sullivan if, I look at O'Driscoll's score and go, nah, don't like it, I think it's always good where, a lot of people have touted him and said he's going to play wing. It's not going to be good for Supercoach. And then, right on the brink of the last games of the community series, he might have unearthed one, That's one that's definitely surprising for me. And I think the one that probably disappointed me, I wasn't really considering him too much as an option, but I knew he was there. Jacob Constanti. I know he's come across from Sydney, small forward role, so probably doesn't really help in Supercoach, but, he had 3 touches for the game and didn't really do enough to suggest that you should pick him. It just really makes him a clear pass. So those would be my 2 from North Melbourne's end on this game.
DR?
Yeah, look, the bloke that impressed me was Matty Flynn. He's back in my flex, boys. Flynn is back in flex. I didn't think he'd make an appearance there again, but he has. Now, there's been questions. He's had a bit of an interrupted pre-season. He was injured there for a while. Still question marks around whether it's him or it's BJ Williams, but based off the data and the CBAs, it's absolutely Matt Flynn who's going to be their R1. We've talked a lot already in the pre-season about the scoring potential for R1s. And I just think this is tick, tick, tick for me. The question marks that I did have, I think I've got answers to that now. Yes, he's looking fit. He scored, 98 against Tristan Sherry as well, who I think is an absolute lock as my R1. I'm paying over 600k for. And he just had the role. So for me, back in the flex, and I don't think that, well, I suppose I'd ask for people that aren't selecting him, what more did you expect from Flynn during this game? I don't think I could have expected any more. And so, he absolutely impressed me.
Two tidbits very quickly, DR, on that.
Yep.
Flynn was on 93 with basically 5 minutes into the fourth quarter. So he basically didn't score anything in crunch time. So even better I would say that's even better, a better sign. Not the best sign, but it still shows that he was already playing quite well. And the other part, so the CBAs show a good sign, 67% CBA rate. The ruck contest percentage, 83%. So he had 83% of the Eagles' ruck contest, with Archer Reed having 13%. So that's BJ Williams isn't the competition anymore, which was the main concern, I would say, with the Flint pick.
Yeah, love it, mate. I can't go him, can I? Poor old Bo. I'm not going to go him. Harley Reid. I'll go Harley Reid instead. Harley Reid, 62 points, 4 kicks, 10 handballs, 72% time on ground. Nah, not a mid-pricer I'm going to be looking at. Never really high on my radar. But really, I'm just going Reid because I didn't want to give poor old Bo another drive-by here and just run over the man again. So Harley Reid, not on my list.
Cool. I've got a couple you want to talk about. I've got a Red Bull here. A mini Red Bull. It's a mini toy car for the Formula One. Oh, he's got a Red Bull as well. There we go. My Red Bull from this game was Luke Davies-Uniacke. The bloke is a proper Red Bull. He is such a bull at contests. I'm so impressed. I think he's gone to another level this year. The trademark sort of sidestep is there. He looks to be commanding the midfield. Yes, it is against West Coast. But look at that. 23 touches, 118. He's just one of those players which is a points per possession player. Like, you just see him and you know that he's going to do something good with the ball. And yeah, I think that now that you don't have the Bont and you don't have Butters as sort of round 12 midfielders, prima midfielders, and we're scrambling around, I don't think Davies-Uniacke is the worst option out there. North should improve, and I think LDU will be on the charge for it. And especially given his contract uncertainty, is this one similar to TDK in terms of he probably wants to lock that in and have a great season going forward. Another player that I think is a really simple lock that we didn't talk about, Caleb Daniel. All of the signs of a half-back are there. He goes around the back of the tall players, the key forwards, gets the handball received, the 1-2s, the kick-ins, asking for the ball, going for the ball. And then I think the best part, and this is why I want to own Cherry and Daniel at the same time, when you get the helmet-to-helmet connection going,
yes,
it is unstoppable.
Yeah.
It is unstoppable. So, look, I greatly appreciate that. One other player I just want to touch on is Griffin Logue. So another one of those
I was waiting for it. Yes, you and the
Bulls
have been talking, and I won't say spooked him, but just gave me a little bit of a tidbit the other day. Very interested in hearing your assessment, my friend.
Look good. Definitely got better as the game went on, I thought. He's not playing the best role, let's say. So Aiden Coy is that number one key defender, and then you've got Griffin Logue and Charlie Comben playing as the 2 and the 3. I think that there's definitely an opportunity for Globe to sort of step into the season. Now, many people may be wondering what is he even priced at? 245k as a defender. He could really be a viable option for us, especially if you're not confident in any of those defensive rookies. You could get up to him at that D6 sort of level. So I think that's one to consider. Sorry for sort of hogging the conversation here. But the other two, in terms of one that impressed, Robert Hansen Jr., if you're comparing Jacob Constancy, Ross, with someone like a Hansen Jr., he was the one that was getting up the ground, was playing really well. Unfortunately, cramped in the fourth quarter, didn't come back on, but I think, what would he have scored? I don't quite remember.
61 Supercoach points, mate, up there on the screen.
Yeah. So 165k, it's good enough, I would say. And then the one that didn't impress, Jack Hutchinson. So one that we were sort of keeping our eyes on. Didn't really have the role. He was playing on the wing in the first half, and then he went into the centre bounces. But really didn't get around it. And I would much rather pay 100K more in the forward line for Sanders or Bailey Smith type, or just go down to a rookie, even if it is like a Hanson Jr., for instance there. So that's sort of the takeaway. And then we sort of briefly touched on Archer Reed before. 119K forward ruck. He sort of provides a good contingency option if Harry Boyd isn't named in round 1. Anything else you want to add, boys?
I don't think there's much that I have to add.
Poldy McKercher?
Oh, Big J's been on him. Been trying to sell me McKercher for about 3 months. I reckon even Big J's off him now as well. It's just the role. You've got the verdict there, which is a pass, and I completely agree. Look, if this bloke was flowing off half back, it's like, yes, lovely, want him in, lock him in, but that's not likely going to be his role.
He's just not accumulating. There's no accumulation in the role.
Yeah. So that's my big concern there. Players like Jack Graham, I just wouldn't be going there. Same as Liam Baker. Like, I'd love to select a Liam Baker, but we've got so many other options out there. And I've said it about a couple of other players. I just don't think that we need to go too funky. There was a bit of talk about Ryan Marrick in the preseason. Well, that's pretty obvious now that we just simply don't go there. Tom Powell, I don't know how Supercoach relevant, but draft-wise, if you're getting involved in a draft somewhere, he's going to be a really sneaky option for you. I think I got him in one of my drafts. Great preseason, impressive the week before as well. But with all the other options, again, I just don't think he's going to be too relevant for us. Roscoe, anything else you want to add to West Coast North, buddy?
Not really. I think Janath's notes here have summed it up pretty well. We've got 19 players covered in there. So as he said before, if you want full notes for all the games, jump on the season guide and get involved, and you'll be able to read it there. I think I'm going to have to sit down and have another read of it at some stage just to keep my head around everyone as well. So I think we're reaching time for the interesting part of the podcast, which is going to be the live reaction to Fremantle and Melbourne.
Live reaction.
Because I don't know what's happened in this game.
Okay, wow.
Here we are. Let's have a look.
Well, we've got some very nice looking scores here.
Settle down. Oh, my God. Settle down, Jordan. Settle down, Andy.
Jordan, what about Andy? Barry. Andy? 133?
Come on. Now, what did you wrong there? Where's the wrong?
93.
Damn it.
Look at Noddy, 72. Rossi happy with that?
Yeah, he's done well.
Murphy
Reed,
what
50.
Harvey Langford? Harvey Langford, 43 of 55% top.
See you, Harvey.
We have Rivers.
Bye-bye, hello,
Rivers, 62 of 17 touches. Look, we're going to admit we have not watched a lick of this game, so we can't really comment on sort of players in terms of their roles and stuff. Liam Reedy down there, 15 Supercoach points. Oh, I don't know what the ruck split there is, but...
Hello, Harry Boyd, maybe.
Would not have been good. Harry Boyd is back.
Erasmus. What's Erasmus?
Erasmus didn't...
Oh, played in water.
Yeah. Ooh, would you look at that? Jacob Van Rooyen injured in the first minute. So does that open the door for an Aiden Johnson, possibly, as a rookie for the Demons?
He scored 54, so he could be in there.
Is he a DPP?
I'm not sure.
Johnson is a 113K forward, so he doesn't have the rack status there, but...
I think we could also possibly be looking at a debut for Matthew Jefferson, pick 15 a couple of years ago.
Yes, possibly.
And I believe he's the only one in the first round of that draft who hasn't debuted yet. Highly spruiked by Max Gawn as a breakout player. He could be one. Key forward, though, I don't think he'd be relevant, but could he replace Van Rooyen? Probably. Petrarca,
look at the top four for the Demons. Is it 2021 again? Oliver, Petrarca, Gawn, May. Like, you just remember the top three as in, I think it's 2020. You just every single week, it's just those three at the top.
Janath.
But yeah.
Track v Dawson.
Oh.
Look at I don't know if you remember, but I got sent a photo by someone of Track in the preseason, and he was just looking like an absolute beast. I went to my app and brought him into the side. After that injury scare, he was out again. But he's just shown that he's played 81% game time, 126 points, picked up over 30 touches. Dawson's got to have competition there.
Oh, he does. He does, definitely. It's the same kind of player. Like, players that had a poor season were either injured or just underperformed. And you can't really blame Track. Well, what was he averaging when he got injured? He was only averaging 107, to be fair. I say only, but he started the season averaging 122. He was averaging 122 at the end of round 4, like after 5 rounds. Oh, this is a game we definitely have to watch, though. It's so Supercoach relevant, this one. Like I say, every game's Supercoach relevant, but this one in particular, because we don't get a watch of them in round 0 as well, because they don't play, this is a game you sort of have to watch. The scores only say so much, right? But look, a couple of things that I see straight away. Sarong, 59% time on ground for the 93, whereas Brayshaw, 80% for the 133.
Oh,
so that's
I didn't see
something
that.
to note there.
Yeah,
20
I didn't
touches
see that.
for Sarong. Brayshaw, 22 touches. The kick to handball ratio, I don't know what's happening there. Is it just sort of the contested style, or was he just a bit handball friendly? Dogger Jackson, 129. Did he go into the ruck at some point? That's something to watch out for. Jordan Clark, see what the kick-ins were like. Corey Wagner, Ross, your boy, you were saying that Alex Pearce pumped him up a little bit?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Murphy Reed, only 50, 14 touches, 75. Would be interested to see if he got some centre bounces. But yeah, it looks like Trent Rivers, 62, 74% time on ground, only 3 clearances. Doesn't look like he sort of had that role that you can really lock into when there's so many other better options, even a Matty Roberts around that price tag. But look, Clayton Oliver, 28 touches, 13 contested, 11 clears, but 3 goals. He's back, baby.
Hey boys, all I've got to ask is if you think back to our rankings, our top 8 midfield rankings in the season guide. Someone had him right up there.
I think Ross also had him in the top 8, didn't you?
I don't know. I don't remember. I wrote it all down.
I don't even remember.
Number 4 for me. Number 4. Yep.
Look, DR, we just need to see a game. See a regular season game, mate. Come on. Chill out.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did want
to turn off the preseason game.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting a bit excited, but we did mention we haven't watched a minute of this. I reckon I watched about 10, 15 minutes of the first quarter. And one thing I noticed with Jordan Clark is that he actually had 2 direct turnovers as well. So the fact that he's got 117 there and also had those 2 direct turnovers that I saw, tell you what, that could have been even bigger. So thank you, Jordan, for those couple of early ones.
Meat on the bone.
Yeah. More meat on the bone here, Roscoe. But shout out to Damo as well from the Footy Mailbag. He was all over Jordan Clark when I had him on for the Freo team preview, and he really helped me to lock in Jordan Clark to my side as well. Yeah. I don't know what happened in this game, but he did mention that he has been noticing in match sims Clark pushing up more to the stoppages as well. So whether or not that happened in this particular game,
that's such a juicy role.
We don't know, but also saw a couple of kick-ins early as well from Clark. So maybe Rhino doesn't have that major monopoly. Maybe he's going to start to share a little bit more, like I'm trying to teach River to do at the moment. So see how we go.
Look, you were a bit skeptical of Clark when everyone else was on the Jack Sinclair train. I know that he's injured, but it's not apples to apples. But I was always team Clark. I think there's something about him this year. Last year we saw that transition from Luke Ryan being the dominant pig when it's a chip to the faster ball movement driven by Clark. And do we see that continue now? That's really a good possibility there.
Absolutely, mate. It's very hard to tell, isn't it, without seeing the game. Like we're looking at the stats here, and we're trying to dissect something that we've got no idea to context or whatever else happened. But we'll obviously get to that very, very soon, so we can give a better assessment. But based off the stats, we have some very relevant players.
Ross, anything else you want to touch on, mate?
Not really. I think I might have to, go and watch the highlights. Very important.
No, the highlights don't do enough. You're not going to look at the goals and see.
I'm not going to watch the full I'm not going to watch the full replay.
You need to. Yeah. You need to. That is where it's at.
Murphy Reed is where it's at for me. Murphy Reed. 50. Yeah. What happened there? What happened with Murphy Reed?
It's the role for me. I will say I watched a couple of minutes before I'm recording with Swizz early, and I did see Murphy Reed that he has a touch of class about him, but is the touch of class going to be something we see come through in a Supercoach score in a couple of years, or will we see in his rookie year? That's the question I want to answer by watching the replay, I reckon.
It's a good question. Oh, hang on. CBAs. Murphy Reed. All right, so let's have a look for Freo. Murphy Reed, 16.7%, boys.
Okay.
Probably not enough.
16.
You've got Young to come back in as well. Young in will probably impact that.
So you got Brayshaw 76.7, Reedy in the 50s, Sarong 53.3. So talk about meat to the bone. Johnson 46, along with Jackson. O'Driscoll 43.3%.
Ooh. But no clearances.
That's interesting, isn't it? And if we go to the Ds for CBAs, we've obviously got Gorn with 90 plus, Viney 70, Ed Langdon 56.7. This guy's a winger. As Harry Sharp kicked him off the wing, Track 56.7 as well. Clary 50%. 50% CBAs for that. Rivers 30, Pickett 26.7. Then you've got Langford at 3.3.
Clary at 50. Look, Clary at 50 at 430k that travels the ground. When we look at the replay and he's at stoppages, then it's a fine pick because he does his best work at the stoppages. He doesn't need to be at centre bounces. But Ed Langdon, look, call me a skeptic, but I'm not really sure that he's the. Maybe he's playing as defensive. Maybe he's playing defensive when you've got an attack of Viney, Oliver, Petrarca. Yes, that's worked in the past, but maybe they're looking for that defensive edge in there. You just
does he give that?
I'll find you something, and I reckon Gorn said Langdon was going to play midfield.
No, they've been touting it. But I didn't think they would actually go through with it. Yeah, interesting.
I don't. That is so unexpected to me to see Langford there. I just thought him and Sharpie would be locks for the wings here. But the other one, Caleb Windsor, wasn't he meant to be playing a half-back role?
Yep.
Was that Caleb Windsor? Well, obviously hasn't gone amazingly well according to the scores. Just nowhere near enough the footy 9 touches.
And look, so we're going to do something a bit different now, boys. So hopefully that gives the viewers a really good wrap of around the ground, sort of what we think about all the sort of relevant players from each of the games. We covered at least 6 players in each of the games, so hopefully that gives a good coverage there. Now what we're going to do is, before we wrap up, there's 4 round 0 games. There's 3 of us. We're going to go around each of these games and we're going to ask one question off each other and see what we come up with. So the first game, you'll see how it goes. It's a bit hard to explain, but first game, Brisbane versus Geelong. So I'm going to give you guys an example. What percentage of CBAs do you need to see Bailey Smith have to be confident in selecting him in round 1? Very simple answer.
50.
Ross?
I think 65.
Oh, higher expectations.
I'm thinking about 60. I just don't think Chris Scott will push him into the high 60s straight up. But look, if he looks good, it's maybe not even a CBA thing. It's just if he looks good. Pass the eye test. All right, Stia, your question for Lions, Cats.
Well, when on earth it's going to be played is probably my main question. Because I'll tell you what, if they move this game, Lions players become so much more relevant than what we're expecting. But my major question here is, what's Levi Ashcroft going to be doing, and will he be subbed out of the game at any stage? If we don't see Levi sub this week, I'm super confident just leave him on field. But if he is subbed out this week, we've then got a big question on our hands whether or not we actually go through with selecting him. So that's probably the one for me. Hypothetically,
Levi scores 70, has 25% CBAs, subbed out. Do you select him in round 1?
Yeah. Because I'm a Brisbane man. Because I love him. Don't do as I do.
He's not going to get subbed every week, so it's better get it out of the way, and the game doesn't count.
True, Roscoe.
Ross, your question?
I think for me, I'm going to go with this. What would you need to see from Josh Dunkley to justify picking him over Lachie Neale if you were going to start one of the two?
Nice one.
Nothing. Honestly, Josh Dunkley could have a 50-point head start in a game and Lachie Neale will still catch up. It is ridiculous how quickly Chalky scores points. So there's not much after last year. Dunkley could score 140 and Neale's on 150. Like the matter of the fact is with the quick ball movement, I don't see a world where Dunkley can average more than Neale this year, unless Neale gets injured.
I'd say that from Brisbane, man.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just pay up.
Just pay it up.
Pay up, Roscoe. Janath
right.
found that out last year. Sorry, mate.
He went back to back 140s and still got overran by Neale. How crazy is that? It wasn't even a bad pick. It was just compared to Neale. It looked like an awful pick. All right, Swannies Hawks. I think my big question here would be, does James Jordan tag?
Oh,
and if he tags, who does he tag?
Get your own question. Oh, I thought that was a lock. There's no way anyone's going to ask that question. Bloody Janath. All right, mate.
You know me, mate. Well. Come on, you know me. James Jordan, does he go to a midfielder? Does he go to a defender? If he goes to a defender, who does he go to? Like, the Hawks don't really have the running defender types. So we may not be able to answer that question straight away. But does he go to a Will Day? Does he go to a Jai Newcomb? Going to be interesting to see. And if he does, how does that affect our view around starting, for instance, the Brisbane boys? If he tags a midfielder, does that mean he'll tag Neale in round one? Does that mean he'll tag Zorko in round one? Something just to pay in mind. And this is all because of Dean Cox being the new coach. Sorry, I should have put that in. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my exact question because I want to know the same thing. I really want to know what's going to happen with James Jordan, who we may need to be looking out for if we're selecting certain premiums in our sides. Look, the one for me, probably my question is, are we going to see the same thing from Matty Roberts? Or was this just a week off? If Matty Roberts can give us another even 100-plus score, I think it's going to be pretty hard to deny if he's looking like he's got a pretty solid role there. But, for example, will Blakey have more of an attacking role rather than that more of a lockdown role? Will things change? Was it more of an experiment with Jake Lloyd? Does he manage to go back? I probably don't think that he does, but I just want to be super confident on Roberts' role if I'm going to select him, particularly given the fact he's got that really tricky bye, as all Sydney players do. So probably the big one for me, Matty Roberts.
Roscoe, mate?
I think I'm going to go with more of a rookie perspective on this game. And I think I'm going to just ask the question, who Sydney will actually line up with in this game? Because obviously last game yesterday against the Suns, we've seen them trot out a squad full of rookies. You've got Kirk, you've got Bice, you've got Andrew, Hanley. You've got heaps of players who could play. They couldn't play. I don't really know who will, who won't. Like, you'd need a, forensic investigator to figure out who's going to come in and who's going to go out. So I think that'll be a question. If we can nail down one or two, it could just come in as handy depth for us to pick an extra player. It might even be that we only pick Sheldrick, but, maybe we pick Sheldrick and Riley Bice. That would be handy. So, really good to know.
Do you want to kick off Suns Essendon as well? You've had the short end of the stick a couple of times now.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think for Suns and Essendon, I want to see how Noah Anderson goes, because
what are you looking for?
Look, I want to see, whether he's able to just score really heavily or whether Essendon look to put some work into him, because if Essendon don't look to put some work into him, they win comfortably and he scores really well. I don't know if it really tells us too much at all, because it doesn't tell us about his flaw, Whereas if Essendon put some work into him, maybe they try and tag him, and he's able to still break through that and get a good score. Maybe Essendon win the game, right? They looked not too bad last week. Maybe Essendon come out and win. How can Noah Anderson score if Essendon get the jump on them? And, is he going to drop a 60 or is he going to rally, fight them back to a 120, 130,
DR?
It's all about Jacko Pryor for me. I was going to try to be really clever and go priority. I just couldn't think of anything funny to go with that. But yeah, for me, it's all about Jackson Pry because I think he could be such an important piece to our defensive line, that D6 position. If he performs well and Redmond plays in the side, super happy with that. I just want to make sure, and I know that lots of good Essendon people have told me that they believe that he's probably taken over Kelly's role, but I just want to make sure that's the case. I want to see Redmond and Pryor in the same side playing together, and as long as he looks half decent, that's probably good enough for me. I know that the last game, one thing I noticed was that he was going hard. Like, he put his body on the line a few times. He wants that opening round spot in the 22. And from what I've seen so far, and from what I know of him being an ex-Lion, he's certainly got the capability. I think that he could be playing in more teams' best 22 than not. Just the way the Lions list is structured at the moment, it's just so hard for someone like him to get a look in. But he's been on the emergence list a heap of times for us last year. He was close. But I think now, given the fact he's moved clubs, gone to Essendon, I think he should get an opportunity. But the question is, what's that going to look like? What's Pryor going to look like? So huge watch for me is Jacko Pryor.
And then for me, probably it would be the Essendon midfield mix. I just want to know exactly what percentage of CBAs Asatis would get in a proper game. Because we've been hearing so much about him in preseason. I want to see what percentage of CBAs he's going to get when the whips are cracking. And we saw Merritt, he only got 36% CBAs on the weekend. Caldwell, 39%. And then Hobbs and Sardis were the 1 and 2. I don't see a world where Hobbs and Sardis are the 1 and 2 CBA mids against Gold Coast.
No.
But I want to see the percentage. And if that percentage is 55%, tick. But if it's in the 30s or something, then I become skeptical, because I feel like Sardis is a player that doesn't spread really well. He's not exactly Matt Rowell by any means, but I need to see him be able to spread, or not spread, but have a good enough role where he has a solid base to score from centre bounces and clearances, stoppages, or the like.
Good one. I think all very, very relevant questions, and looking forward to seeing if we can get some answers.
DR, you want to start us off with Giants Collingwood, the last game of round 0?
Giants Collingwood. For me, I'm not interested in a heap of players here, but the main one that I am interested in is Harry Perryman. So my question is what we saw from Perryman on the weekend going to continue to be his role going into the season? I'm expecting and hoping that it will be, but that's something I'm looking just for confirmation of what's going to happen with Perryman. So that's probably the biggest watch here for me personally.
With De Goey coming back in probably as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Ross, mate?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to take the obvious question. A lot of people want to see, how does Nick Dacos handle the Bedford tag? If he can get through Bedford and drop a whopping score, we think you have to pick him. You know, I think he can get through it. They played the Giants in opening round last year. I don't know if Bedford necessarily took such a hard tag on him, but he still put up, I believe, 130. So I'm confident that he can get through it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. The fact that you say, let's say that he scores 70 and he gets tagged, the ramifications of that, he plays Port Adelaide round 1. Does he get tagged again by like a Drew? But then you've got the Bulldogs, and they've got no one in the midfield at the moment. You've got Carlton. We typically don't tag Nick Dacos, but then you've got the back-to-back of Sydney and Brisbane, where he's probably going to see a couple of tags. And this is where a question like, does James Jordan tag become so important, because we can learn so much from the first game off a new regime or a new coach and how that flow-on affects as well. So if Dacos scores 100 and is tagged, are you going to pick him?
Oh, I think, yeah. If it's 100, I think you'd still take him. With the doubts that you've had, I think 100 from one of the better taggers in the game is still a good result. If you see an absolute stinky 40 to 70, maybe not. Yeah. But I'm in this position where, like, I watched him play against Richmond, and we've seen him play last season where he can just drop such a big score and you think, well, is it possible to tag him? Like, surely they've been working with him in the off-season on how to break a tag, every possible strategy under the sun to break a tag. Like, he's the man they're going to go for, and, he just has to know how to do it. And I think he will. Yeah.
Talk about
would you select him?
Well, all I'll say is talk about two completely different tests. So he's just played a game against Richmond, where, let's be honest, no offense, Richmond, like just taking the P155, as I said. All of a sudden now he's playing a Giants team with what we're expecting to be one of the heaviest tags that you can possibly get in the game. So what we'll be able to see is what Dacos is capable of with super easy opposition, and he probably did what most of us were expecting. And we also get to see what he's capable of when he's getting some really, really tight attention. So I think that this is a good mix for us to see what he can produce when he's playing in different circumstances, I suppose. So look, if he manages to get 100 plus against his tag, then all of a sudden for me, these early worries that we've got about his opening draw don't completely go out the window. But if he can do it against Bedford, are there going to be too many other taggers that are going to be giving him more trouble than what Bedford does? I don't think so myself. So, this is a huge watch. And keep in mind, he's really high. He's over 50% owned. Over half the competition own the bloke.
Crazy, scary non-owned.
It's a huge decision whether or not you go with the crowd or you go a little bit different like I'm and Roscoe thinking maybe a Chalky Neal. That's got huge ramifications. So, massive watch. Massive watch.
And I guess the final question, which I would have here, is the makeup of the Giants midfield. I think the midfield isn't great. You've got the tag in Bedford, but then you've got Callaghan, probably locked in there. But then where does the other midfielder come from? Is it a Leak? Is it a Toby Green? Is it a Stephen Caniglio? Like, there's so much uncertainty. Caniglio didn't even attend a centre bounce on the weekend. Like, that's the level of uncertainty I'm talking about. So in terms of their midfielders, Leak 61%, Callaghan 58%, Green 42%, Josh Kelly 39%, Bedford 35%, Rouston 26%, Daniels 23%, Darcy Jones 13%. Like, it feels a lot of band-aid solutions in that midfield. I just want to know, in a proper game against a pretty decent midfield now that consists of Perriman, Dacos, DeGoey, even Sidebottom's playing in there now, what does it exactly look like? And that can give us a great indication. And look, if Harry Perriman scores 120 and he's playing off of Nick Dacos, I want to see, does Perriman spread the ground? Because yes, he should be scoring well against his former side and this midfield in the Giants as that sort of second midfielder. But I want to see whether he has more avenues to scoring than simply clearances and tackles. Because we've seen in the past that players that don't have that spread, where they can have the uncontested possessions and the uncontested marks, their ceiling as an option greatly decreases. So that's what I want to see. But look, boys, that was a great chat there. Just talking about what we want to see from the round one games. Obviously, what we've just talked about stems a lot from what we have in our season guide. It's 450 pages long. Like, it's got everything that you want and more. If you haven't ordered yours yet, make sure to get onto it, because all of those preseason notes, which we were talking about, are in there, as well as the expert advice of DR, Roscoe, as well as a lot of other experts going around as well. So, look, great chat, boys. I think it was 2 hours 23. Not too bad. We were aiming for 2 hours, so only 20 minutes over, which is... we'll take that for our first hit up for the season. Everyone has a preseason, even us content creators. But look, we will be back with all the team reveals. So from Sunday night, when the final round 0 game is done, until Wednesday night, you will be having a team reveal drop on this channel from one of us for every night. We won't reveal the order just yet, so there's a bit of secrecy going around. But look out, because every single day you will have a team reveal to watch on the Supercoach Swordplay channel. Do you boys have any final words?
Oh, look,
No.
just I suppose great to have Roscoe on board. We obviously missed Spilsy tonight, moving house, so never the same without our other brother Spilsy. But I know that he's been working very, very hard on his Supercoach team. But look, boys, just so excited to be back. We're almost there. Great to get our first poddy of 2025 all done and dusted. And it's going to be such a huge season. Plenty of carnage to navigate. But we play the game because we enjoy it. It's fun. And sometimes more carnage can provide a little bit more fun and more opportunities. So, loved having a chat, legends. And Roscoe, congratulations, mate. First official poddy as a co-host. Absolutely smashed it out of the park, brother.
Can we give him the Gatorade shower?
No, please don't do that. Yeah, we've made it. So anyone who's still here, obviously, thanks for sticking around. It's been a good chat, long chat, but hopefully there's lots of info in there that can really help you out. And, as you say, with all the carnage going around, good luck to everyone. My team reveal that I presented on the channel a couple of weeks ago and my team reveal next week are going to be completely different. So many things have happened. So many players have dropped out. So many players become, potential must-haves. And, if we could fit them all in, everyone would probably have an elite side from the get-go. But that's what makes the game fun, not being able to fit everyone in and picking and choosing a better M4 over somebody else's M4 or better rookies, So good luck with your season ahead. It's already starting to, rattle my brain a little bit, trying to find room for so many players. But we'll find a way.
We always do, mate. But no, sounds good, legends. Well, we'll have another poddy Tuesday week. So in a couple of weeks' time, after the first round is done, we'll have our poddy. But in the meantime, until then, make sure to tune in with the team reveals, as well as possibly we'll have Spills' say. We'll have Spills' talk back show starting up in a couple of weeks as well. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in, legends, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, guys.
See you later.
See ya.